What's up, my people? Over the past year or so, the Absolute Batman title has easily been the hottest thing in comics. In fact, it's been the top dog in a series of Absolute Universe titles that have given new life to mainstream comics in general, and some even say it has saved the comic industry itself. But whether that part is exaggerated or not, the one thing that is undeniable is that its popularity has been very well deserved. And that's because it's been a fresh and compelling take on Batman, an 86-year-old hero, but also every aspect of Batman's world and his entire rogues gallery. Not to mention the great storytelling has been combined with incredible character designs and art to go along with it, which needless to say is not an easy thing to pull off for a comic character and universe that has already seen countless alternate versions and interpretations over the years. So Scott Snyder, Josh Williamson, and all the other creators involved really deserve all the love they're getting right now. But with that in mind, we've been covering every Absolute Batman issue right from the start. And today we're pulling together the entire Abomination arc, which not only gave us an insane war against Absolute Bane, but it also revealed the rise of Absolute Batman's rogues gallery. And that includes the origins for Bane himself, Absolute Mr. Freeze, Killer Croc, Penguin, the Riddler, Two-Face, Absolute Catwoman, and most recently, Absolute Joker in issue 15 and the Arkham special. Both of which are technically not part of the Abomination arc. However, I'm going to tie them in here anyway because one, they're incredible, and two, because they're critical to the overall rise of Absolute Batman's rogues. In my opinion, which a lot of other people share, this arc is going to go down as a classic. So we're going to start with Absolute Batman issue 7 and work our way through the Absolute Batman Arkham one-shot to give the complete rise of Batman's rogues gallery. However, I will add as a note that we're not including the annual #1 issue from October because while it's also really good and you can find our episode on it right here, it's not really a major tie-in for the Abomination story. So with that said, off we go.
Okay, so Absolute Batman issue 7 starts off in Tanzania at a moment in the past. And we see a father and son driving in a Jeep as the father tells the son, "To the land of ice we go." Exciting, right? Not much further now. The boy says, "We can't stay down here a little longer, Papa? There's so much to see." The dad responds, "There's even more to see inside the glacier. I know it's hard to believe, but the ice on the mountain holds more life inside than this whole rainforest. You won't believe your eyes, okay, Victor?" Victor, what's wrong? As we see young Victor Freeze's eyes start to bleed. The comic then brings us back to Gotham City's present day, where we see several of Batman's friends, such as Harvey, Ozzy, Edward, and Waylon, all mourning the death of their good friend Matches Malone. They make a memorial for him in Crime Alley and give a speech about how he was the best at playing a matchbook game when they were younger, and whoever won that matchbook game got to choose what kid had to do the dare, like steal magazines or buy a fake ID, so on and so forth. Harvey even goes on to say the funny thing about Mitchell Matches Malone, though, was the kid always chose himself for the dare, always stuck out his own neck. That's who he was. Waylon then asks, "Anyone know how he was doing recently?" Edward says, "I heard he was on the up and up after his stint at Blackgate." Ozzy responds, "Yeah, he was always on the up and up until he was on the down and down." Waylon then asks, "So who saw him last then?" Bruce arrives saying, "I did. I was the last person to see him." We're then taken to 1 week ago as we get captions from Bruce saying, "Batman Combat Journal, April 19th. This city feels strange. The streets look less familiar every day. For the past month, ever since the Blackgate incident, this city has been under martial law too, to ensure people's safety from threats like the Batman. Mayor Hill has issued a 10 p.m. curfew. There are police on every corner, outfitted with fancy new gear. Even the weather feels dangerous. A freak snowstorm predicted. Pennyworth called, said I should lie low until he's back. Go to work." But there is no work. Lucius says all city construction projects have been halted. Something is happening. I can feel it. Like this is all part of some bigger campaign. Something too big to see from the ground. Whatever it is, though, I can't shake the feeling it all comes back to that place, Arkham. The massive black site they're building right off the coast of Gotham. The crew building is private, some company called JK. I have to get on that crew. I will. Which is why I'm headed to the Elliott building at 5 in the morning meeting Matches Malone. As Matches walks up saying, "Bruce, is that really you?" Internal monologue from Bruce says, "Last the guys heard, he was into running ID scams high-end. Barcodes, laser engraved. My hope was that he can get me work papers to get on that Arkham crew. When I asked him 2 weeks ago, he said he'd get right on it. Then nothing until this morning when he said it was urgent." Bruce puts out his hand saying, "Matches, how are you?" Matches grabs it saying, "Walk with me, buddy," as Bruce's internal monologue says he's nervous, spooked about being followed. With the cops everywhere, I couldn't risk bringing gear. If there's a fight, all I have is the cast. Pennyworth insisted on it being medical and medical only, but he then left town, and I did my own engineering, telling us that Bruce's cast is tricked out with gadgets. Bruce then asks, "You okay, Matches?" He replies, "What? Of course, yeah, I'm great. And yes, I got the work papers, but I did you one better." Bruce is all like, you didn't. Matches looks at him saying, but I did. I spent the last week on their crew inside the place. Bruce asks, why would you do that? Matches just tells him, you know me, Bruce. It's just how I do. Bruce, clearly annoyed, says, this isn't a game, Matches. Matches is like, it's fine, man. I mean, it's actually not fine because that place, now, I've been to my share of lockups, nasty ones too, but this Arkham is next level, like beyond. And get this, they're putting people in there already. It's up and running. Bruce says, what? And Matches tells him, yeah, it's alive. Look, I'm going back in tomorrow and I'll get more, but here, take this. Come on, man, don't be mad at me. Bruce then says, I'm not mad, it was supposed to be me. Matches then grabs his shoulder saying, hey, look at me, Bruce. It's good to see you, man, truly. I miss you. And the guys, Crime Alley for life, right? And I wouldn't have done this if I didn't want to. The truth is, I owe you for, Bruce asks, for what? Matches says for, as he starts sweating profusely, with Bruce looking at him saying, Matches? As he sees Matches' pores open up all over his face with blood coming out everywhere. Bruce then says, Matches, as he basically implodes from the inside out with Bruce saying no. We're then taken back to the present where Bruce is telling his friends the story and they say, the police report said, he tells them, it's wrong. Whoever killed him used some kind of biological weapon. There are some leads in his phone. Clues. I'll get the person who did this. I promise. I just wanted to tell you that. His friends are all like, and that's all you want to tell us? Bruce responds, seriously? Edward replies, Bruce, we thought you were dead, buddy. The last thing any of us heard. Ozzy then interrupts saying, you were diving out of my plane dressed like Nosferatu. Bruce then tells them, I didn't mean to worry you. I have to go. Waylon grabs Bruce saying, no way. You're not going anywhere. We are talking about this here and now. We are talking about Batman. Then on the next page, we see Batman gliding through Gotham as his Batman Combat Journal says, Match's phone didn't have much from Arkham, but what it had was bad. A 4-second video shows hundreds of windowless titanium cells, and in the background I could hear crying, begging, and screams. At the end of the video was a list. Whether Matches wrote it or found it, I don't know, but it's filled with names. Langstrom, Isley, Strange, Freeze, names of researchers, doctors around the world. The only one with any connection to Gotham is Dr. Victor Freeze, a pioneer of cryotech. He started a company called VCore, which has an office right here in Midtown. For some reason, it pulls enough power from the grid to light 10 city blocks. I need to get in there, but after curfew, the streets are all heavily patrolled. So with the snowstorm raging, the air seems safest. Police blimps flying blind. All predictions said the storm showed no sign of stopping, but then, as suddenly as it began, it stops, and I'm exposed. As the police and the blimp say, is that? It is. Launch the drones, as Batman goes into a free fall evading the drones. And that's when Pennyworth patches through from London asking, Bruce, are you there? I have information. Bruce says, I'm listening. With Pennyworth asking, how's your arm? Are you resting it? Bruce answers, yeah. What did you find out? As he launches projectiles from his modified cast. Pennyworth asks, what's all that bloody noise in there? Bruce tells him, the bloody radio. The information, Pennyworth. Pennyworth says, the case you asked after. It's not a biological weapon or a virus. It's a bacterium, but there's no record of it. Not here. Not at the WHO. Batman asks, then where did it come from? Pennyworth answers, we don't know. I'll be back in a few days and we could talk. Until then, do 2 things for me, will you? 1, turn down the radio before you go deaf, and take care of yourself, kid. As Batman is evading the police, he asks, is that it? Pennyworth responds, yeah. And since you and I both know you don't have a radio, as Batman says, I'm hanging up now. We're then taken back to Bruce and his friends as they're asking him about Batman, and Bruce tells them, there's nothing left to say about it. I should have kept you apart from this, all of you. Harvey asks, let me ask you something. Was it for Batman when you clerked with me? Waylon adds, and trained with me? Ozzy then says, and slummed it with me? Before Edward finally says, and studied with me. Funny, Bruce. It looks like you did keep us all apart when it comes to Batman. Bruce answers, enough. Look, what happened to Matches, I won't. Waylon says, we all know why Matches was the way he was. Harvey says, Waylon's right, Ozzy. It's time to deal with this. Lay all the cards on the table. As Bruce says, no, it's time for you to get out of my way so I can get back to work. We then see Bruce do exactly that, disguising himself as one of the crew from JK, as captions from him say, the top of the building is wired for surveillance. Hardline remote. So I leave Batman in the pipes. Enter as a nobody, city engineer coming to do a check. After all, what's happening up here that requires so much power? As Bruce enters one of the rooms at this off-site facility, he sees several animals frozen in ice. Then someone from behind says, they're all real if that's what you're wondering. The mammoth is from the Yukon, the tiger from Siberia, and the beetle from Chile. Neat, huh? Hardest part was keeping them intact during transit. Big ice can be pretty volatile when it's disturbed. Bruce answers, I'm sorry, I'm here from the city to... The man interrupts saying, run a check on the power? I'm director of VCore. No problem at all. Welcome, Mr. And Bruce answers, Pennyworth. The man looks at the ID as captions from Bruce say, it's not as good as Matches could have made, but he's only glancing at it. Bruce tries to make conversation saying, beautiful view up here. The man answers, thank you. And please, look around. If there's anything I can do for you, just say, even if it's just a midnight tour. Dr. Freeze and his wife collected all kinds of wild specimens. Bruce asks, do they still oversee things here then? Victor and Nora Freeze? The man answers, I guess you could say that, yes, as he presses a button that opens up doors, revealing the frozen bodies of Victor and Nora Freeze, as the man says, I'm their son, Victor Jr. And I just gotta add here, their bodies look completely horrifying. And Bruce thinks so too as he looks on in horror as Victor says, I know it might seem extreme, but it's what they wanted given their shared love of ice and the mission here. Bruce asks, what is the mission if you don't mind my asking? In city records, there's almost nothing about what V-Corps does. And it's on the next page we get the origin of the Freeze family. Victor says, my parents always believed the ice held wonders, that it existed to preserve good things until the world was ready for them. Ice was the Earth's grace, blue and pure. They funded their research with V-Corps where the dying could preserve themselves until cures for their deaths existed. That's what all the power goes to, all the people frozen, waiting to be woken up one day, including my parents. Bruce asks, has anyone actually ever been revived? Victor answers, yes. Me. When I was a boy, I was diagnosed with a rare terminal disorder. Distraught, my parents were convinced the condition would be cured one day, but not in time to save me. So the ice would save me instead. Which goes back to the very beginning of the book where we see young Victor's eyes bleeding. That was the beginning of his disorder. So his father and mother decided to put him on ice to save him. Internal monologue from Bruce says, focus, you got him talking now. While he's distracted, look for anything that could help. Bruce says, yes, it did save you. Victor replies while touching his frozen mother and father's ice block, yes, still they told me it wouldn't hurt. When I woke up, the world would be a better place. But the ice, oh, it's not what they thought. As we see his hands and veins start to turn blue. Bruce says to himself, any link to what happened to Matches? Ancient microorganisms preserved. Maybe the question isn't where the bacterium that killed Matches came from, but when. Telling us the bacterium came from ancient frozen ice. As Victor continues to say, I felt everything, every moment, the pain, oh my God, it ground in slow. The ice isn't grace, it is fury, it is reckoning. Bruce then says to himself, he did this, as Victor finally tells him, the ice births monsters, Mr. Pennyworth, just like me. Now to the land of ice we go. As we see Victor Freeze Jr. turn into a Dr. Manhattan zombie White Walker monster thing as he grabs Bruce by the face, starting to freeze or infect him. And just like that, Absolute Batman issue 7 comes to an end. With that said, let's get into issue 8. The issue starts off with Freeze dragging Bruce's body as he started to freeze his face at the end of the last issue, while the issue simultaneously jumps back and forth to Bruce talking to his friends, like last issue, as we see Waylon tell Bruce, don't even think about running, Bruce, there's no getting out of this one. After this, we see Freeze dragging Bruce to what looks like a cryo chamber. He then takes a scalpel to Bruce, cutting off his clothes, saying, all right, Mr. Pennyworth, whatever your name is, let's get you, but Bruce is able to grab Freeze's neck, trying to choke him, but Freeze just grabs his hand and freezes it as he says, easy now, easy, as Bruce goes unconscious. He then slowly wakes up, now realizing he's strapped inside of a cryo chamber, saying, what? Then as we see Freeze tinkering with devices around Bruce, he says, good, I hope you enjoyed your rest. There won't be any sleeping in the ice after all, the pain won't let you. Bruce looks around and sees other people in cryostasis, as Freeze says, that's right, look around, you're in high company. There are some of Gotham's wealthiest, members of the Powers family, the Gates. All of them came here at the end of their lives, believing the ice would be an escape, one they could take to find everything fixed and forgiven on the other end. But ice isn't salvation, it's the memory of all we want to forget. It is vengeance. As Freeze pulls a lever to fill the chamber Bruce is in with freezing liquid, he walks out and says, Bruce, now as your temperature drops, you might feel a burning. Hypothermia scrambles the brain's thermal regulation. It's why so many people freezing to death remove their clothes. Don't worry though, soon the suffering will pass beyond hot or cold. Of course, for the first 30 years or so, all you'll want is death. But after that, hopefully if you're like me, you'll come to accept it, even love it, the pain. Alright, on the next page of Absolute Batman issue 8, we're taken to the past yet again when Bruce was still having a conversation with his friends. And we see Bruce slaps away Waylon's hand as he says, don't make me hurt you. Waylon responds, you can try, but if you leave now, you're no better than Matches was. Bruce is like, what the hell is that supposed to mean? Waylon says it means you're a damn coward, and Batman is too, as Bruce tackles Waylon from behind. We're then taken back to Bruce inside of the cryo chamber as his eyes are bloodshot and he's in pain, remembering all the horrible moments in his life as his thoughts say every single cell shrieks. There's no room for anything else anymore. No feeling but this. No thought but this. I am nothing but agony. The book then jumps back yet again to Bruce and Waylon as Waylon gets up with Bruce saying, but I'm a coward, right? Waylon says, yeah, you are. You see, Ozzy told us how you won at Black Mask, jumping on that boat with no way off. Bruce says, and? Waylon then punches him in the stomach saying, and that was a suicide mission, just like this one, referring to Bruce wanting to confront Freeze. We then go back to Bruce in the cryo chamber as we see the tank is filling with liquid and the liquid is getting colder. He tells himself he's running out of time as he reaches for his cast, and that he has to hurry as his skin is on fire, and he then launches batarangs from it into the glass, while saying only get a few tries, burning, freezing, but we see the batarangs are able to break the glass. And all this is intertwined with Waylon talking to Bruce saying what he's doing is a suicide mission, because he can never get past Bruce, your dad going back from him, being the last one in the door. Matches blamed himself for your dad staying out there instead of coming inside with all of us. Bruce says my dad stayed out because, Waylon interrupts saying, we all know why he stayed out there, but Matches felt it was his fault, just like you do, because you got us the trip to the zoo in the first place. All those years he let it eat him up, until he was down to zero, nothing. You're not there, are you? We're then taken back to Freeze, who's on a computer talking to who we could only assume is Absolute Joker, because as we saw at the end of issue 6, Absolute Joker has been the one gathering all these villains, such as Black Mask, Bane, who we haven't even seen fully yet, and now apparently Mr. Freeze. Anyway, Freeze then says to him, a bacterium that died off 100,000 years ago, untraceable. In my snowfall, the markers in the crystals. Anyone whose skin it touched should already be fully readable to you. The Joker, or the voice, tells Freeze, we're uploading data, but I'm looking at over 92% of this city's population right now. Coherent genetic profiles. Well done. And no one gave you any trouble over the Malone man? Freeze replies, no one worth mentioning, but Malone was a nobody. I don't expect anyone else to come knocking. Batman then kicks in the door, saying to Freeze, knock knock, as he's extremely pissed off. Freeze then looks at him saying, Batman? Ha, what are you doing here? Batman responds, I heard you like pain, as he lights a torch from his forearm. Bruce then fights Freeze and says to himself, he's fast, and your body temp can't be above 96 yet, still hyperthermic. Blood feels like slush. He's too fast for you right now, so slow his ugly ass down, Batman. As Batman puts the torch to Freeze's face, this stuns Freeze and makes him fall back as Batman's captions continue to say, strong too, ice woven into the muscle tissue, petrified, fibrous. You though, you're still trying to hide the shivering. So we can have Batman go for the nerve bundles, as he uses his cape to attack Freeze. This is one of my favorite things about Absolute Batman. His cape can fully be manipulated like it's a symbiote tendril or something. Batman then says, don't let him get the upper hand, as Freeze grabs him and puts him through the wall. Batman says to himself, rotator cuff shot. I can feel 2 ribs splintering as I breathe. We then get a panel of Waylon picking Bruce up saying, we're not done yet, man, come on up. But we're quickly brought back to Batman and Freeze as Batman gets up slowly saying, that's all you got? Freeze answers saying, nice. Seems you love pain too. You're in good company here. As he presses a button saying, see? Releasing all the other people from their cryo chambers. Back to the past yet again, Waylon asks Bruce, now I need to ask you something. Do you want to die? Bruce answers, what? Waylon says, you heard me, Bruce. Do you want to die? Is that all Batman is? You back at the zoo, standing outside the door this time? The panels then jump back to Batman as all the people experimented on by Freeze start attacking him. Batman says a sound from inside. Skittering, Freeze calls out to them, tells them I'm here to save them, and before I know what's happening, they're on me. On the next page, we see when Batman punches them, they literally fall apart as one of their jaws goes flying off. Batman says to himself, they're falling apart in my hands, but they keep coming, like they want me to. While we simultaneously see Waylon still talking to Bruce in the past saying, because your dad, he didn't want to die. It wasn't his death that made him a hero. You hear? It was his life. That's the hard part, man, getting through, not letting it crush you. But that's what we do here in Crime Alley. We're survivors. So Batman needs to be one too. Understand? Do you want to die? Bruce just stares at the memorial they made for Matches as Waylon asks again, I said, do you want to die? Bruce answers no, as Waylon says, then live. We then get panels of Bruce continuing to get attacked by the Horde Freeze unleashed, with Freeze saying, come on, don't give up now, I'm right here. Bruce then throws all of them off and runs through the hole in the wall that Freeze threw him through earlier, jumping out of the building, tumbling down the side before his cape catches him. Batman then calls Waylon, but it goes to voicemail with Bruce saying, listen, there's something in the snow, something bad. Call the others. I'll fill you in, but Waylon, you were right, and I just wanted to say thank you. We're then brought to Croc's gym as we see Waylon go inside, where two men approach him, with one saying, "Waylon Jones?" He says, "Can I help you?" But then another guy comes up from behind with some chloroform, knocking him out. They then inject something in his arm, and one of the men gets on his phone saying, "Yep, he's a perfect specimen. Take him to Arkham." And with that, the issue ends, as it says, "Next, Bane." So we could only assume they're taking him to Arkham to turn him into the Killer Croc.
One of the questions we've been asked the most over the years is how to get started in comic collecting and how do you keep track of the key comics to spec on? Well, the answer is to download the Key Collector Comics app. Now, most of you already know what a key comic is, but for those of you who may be completely new to comic collecting, a key issue includes things like first appearances, first cover appearances, origin stories, and other similar factors that give an issue specific importance in comic history. And Key Collector Comics is a free mobile app and website dedicated to tracking and recommending those key issues. So you can browse categories like the trending 20, $10 keys, and lists focus on key issues tied to hot franchises like the DCU. They even have key issue alerts that deliver breaking and exclusive updates about movies, TV, and potential future key issues. In our opinion, it is the best platform for comic specking, which is why we're excited to also have them as today's sponsor. But here's the thing, Key Collector isn't limited to tracking key issues only. You can also catalog and get a rough value of your own existing comic collection. On top of that, the app also shows you new and upcoming issues each week with updates on which books introduce new characters. And again, everything I just mentioned is completely free, which is nuts. But having said that, you can become a subscriber, which unlocks some great deep dive categories and secondary market info, which we definitely recommend if you're serious about specking on comics. So if you use our promo code VARIANT to set up your Key Collector Comics account, you'll get a 2-week free trial to check that out. You won't even need to enter a credit card. It's a clean freebie. So become a more informed collector. Just click the link in the description to download the Key Collector Comics app for free from the App Store or Google Play Store, or visit keycollectorcomics.com. And you can thank us later. All right, so that wraps up Absolute Batman issue 8. So let's move on to issue 9.
The issue starts off in the neutral territory of Bialia, where we see two leaders of their respective territories coming together, grieving about their lost family members, such as sons and fathers. Before they basically say, "It's alright because the war is coming to an end. There will be peace." One of the men then says, "Yes, we can announce it tomorrow. Conduct and Quarak no longer enemies, but partners. We nationalize the pipeline." And the other one says, "We nationalize the silica mine. And together we begin to heal our lands." The two then shake hands as one of the men says, "Thank you, Omar. Peace is your legacy." Omar replies, "Our legacy. Today a century of war finally ends. No more bloodshed," as they see blood come from under the door. Bane then comes through the door saying, "Hello. Forgive me for interrupting, gentlemen," as they say "you," meaning they clearly know who he is. Bane, while towering over them, says, "I admit I was genuinely elated when I heard whispers about these peace talks, which is why I was so crushed to hear about their breakdown. When one of you betrayed the other in this very room, killing him and plunging your countries back into war. Which one of you was it again?" One of the men says, "You think you can threaten us? Omar just lost his sons. This is bigger than..." But before he could finish his sentence, Omar says, "I'll do it." At which point Bane picks up the other man by the head with one hand and literally pops his head in the palm of his hand as if it's a grape, which is pretty damn gnarly. He then grabs Omar by the neck saying, "Later today, you'll give a speech declaring an escalation of operations. Now, my employers, they know this might be difficult for your people to accept, but they really believe in your leadership skills, Omar, as do I. After all, you and I both know there's no real legacy in treaties. In fact, one of my favorite quotes comes from an ancient king from this valley, Sargon. Peace, he said, is the pretty pictures we draw over the ever-warring stars. Beautiful, isn't it? Feel free to use that in your speech today." Bane then gets a call saying, "Forgive me, I have to take this. Gotham City, I'm on my way." The comic takes us to Gotham, where we see Batman taking down criminals left and right. As narration from Alfred says, "He was supposed to lay low, but I returned to find him acting like a possessed man. His friend Waylon Jones has been missing for 2 weeks, and in that time, Batman has been waging a constant war on Gotham's underworld. I want to tell him to stop, but I know better. What's left of the Maronis and Falcones? No one is spared. Last night, he took down so many of their people that the hospital actually ran out of ambulances. At which point, they started using ride shares until they ran out of those too. And there was even a story about an intrepid EMT ferrying the injured to the ER in a rickshaw. As we see, the EMT is none other than than Dick Grayson, clearly setting him up for future issues. Alfred continues to say, last night I finally asked him, what are you going to do when you run out of enemies? Now let's pause for a second. This Batman is so brutal and so violent, there was not enough ambulances to take all the people he took out to the hospital. Anyway, after this, we're taking to Barbara Gordon, who's cooking dinner at her place. But she hears someone from one of her rooms say, Officer Gordon. She then makes her way slowly to said room where she hears the voice, and then she takes her gun out saying, down, on the ground. As we see, Batman has left his cowl there and is talking to her through it saying, I need your help. Later that night, we see she meets him at the Gotham Zoo getting out of her police car saying, yo, Batman, I have your, as he appears on top of her car saying, where is he? She says, not so fast. First, why? He responds, because he's my friend. She says, no, I figured that. I mean, why me? He says, because I've seen you in action. You're a good cop. Please, who took him? She then hands him the file saying, apparently us. Batman then takes the files back to his friends Harvey, Oz, Eddie, and Alfred, and as they look at the files, they see apparently the police took Wayland to Arkham, or Ark-M as it's called here. Bruce then reads the file to them saying, they took him for breaking city lockdown. It makes no sense. Harvey says, even more confusing, Gotham Municipal already claimed his property eminent domain. Edward then says, why would they do that unless, with Alfred finishing his sentence saying, unless he's not coming back. Oz is like, excuse me? Who are you? Bruce, who the hell is this guy again? Bruce tells him, easy Oz, he's here to help. Pennyworth? Alfred responds, these Arks. As far as we know, there are 12 others around the world. Functionally, they're black sites, but there are rumors of very bad things happening in them. Abominable things. Bruce says, Freeze said something about that snowfall preparing the city, marking people somehow. Whatever is happening in that place, we need to get way out. Harvey's all like, whatever this is, it's been in the works for a long time. In the 1800s, there was some kind of hospital on the island. When the place burned down in the 30s, JK Industries bought the land. All of them. They then look at the blueprints of how to get in there, with Bruce saying, all right, once I get him out, we need to keep him safe. Harvey says, I can get witness protection on it. They'll hold him in Metropolis out of reach. Oz says, better yet, maybe we can all move to sunny Metropolis. Are you listening to yourselves? Do you hear how crazy this is? Bruce then punches the table saying, and you all wanted me to be honest with you. You wanted in on Batman. Well, this is Batman. Oz says, hey man, I was just saying it's crazy. I wasn't saying we shouldn't do it. We then get a page of Jim Gordon and Martha Wayne packing up his office as he lost the mayoral election, with him telling her, look, I'm done. I'm not running anymore. But look, it's your turn. Whatever you want to do. We then get a flashback of Bruce and Selina Kyle doing the no pants dance in a pile of money when someone knocks on the door ferociously. Bruce gets up and looks through the peephole and says it's Wayland, who's there to tell him that he's got a title shot against the champion and that he wants Bruce to help train him. Wayland then looks at the bed and says, is that actual money? At this point, we're taken back to the present where we see Bruce is in his beast tank submarine Batmobile with Pennyworth. He's putting on some scuba flippers and gear to make his way into Arkham via caverns underground. When he gets in, he says, what the? Pennyworth asks, what is it, Bruce? What are you looking at? He says, the real Ark-M. As we see, it's essentially an underground facility slash city. Captions from Alfred say, why didn't you just say what you really wanted earlier to Bruce? You old fool. You just said good luck. So what if it wouldn't have made a difference? You still should have warned him that in England, at CIS, you learned your worst fear was true. That everything happening here in Gotham is part of it, connected to the bigger thing, the terrible thing. Bruce then tells him, I'm in. Alfred continues to say to himself, you should have talked to him because you've been right where he's been right now. You know what it's like to think you could save them, the ones you care about, your brothers in arms, only to find out you can't. To see them become strangers, enemies, as he looks at an old photo of a person with an eye patch who seems to be none other than Slade Wilson, aka Deathstroke, and apparently he was his brother in arms, which is really interesting, and I'm sure it's going to come back around in a future story arc. Anyway, as Batman makes his way into Arkham, he's trying to get in touch with Pennyworth, but he's getting no answer as he says, Pennyworth, are you there? Damn it, Pennyworth, come in. I don't know what I'm looking at anymore. We then see Batman look at a gigantic skeleton of what seems to be the Man-Bat. As Batman continues to try to get in touch with Pennyworth, we see Bane come in saying hello, kicking Batman to the floor. Batman then gets up with Bane saying, go on, it's okay. Batman then launches his cape tendrils into Bane's chest, stabbing him, but it doesn't affect him at all. In fact, Bane says, you could advance now, which Batman does, beginning to attack Bane, but he blocks every punch and kick with 2 fingers precisely hitting pressure points, which immobilizes Batman, making his arms and legs go limp, while simultaneously mocking him, being like, Muay Thai, nice. Batman then just stands there saying, is that all you got? Come on, I only need 1 leg to kick your ass, you juiced up. But Bane interrupts him saying, juiced up? Friend, I haven't even used this stuff yet. But if you want to see what it does, as he starts juicing himself up, with Batman falling to his knees asking, what are you? He replies, call me Bane, welcome to your new home. Now let's get you prepped for surgery, as we see Bane, like 3 3 stories tall now, picking up Batman by the head, carrying him to surgery. This is the most massive version of Bane I've ever seen, which says a lot considering we have Arkham vs. Bane. He's legitimately like 3 stories tall and looks like a monster. Yeah, I think it's safe to say this is going to be the most beastly version of the character we've ever seen. But the crazy thing is, the issue ends with this juiced up Bane that's several stories tall, bringing Batman to surgery. Like, that's our cliffhanger. And that's exactly where issue 10 picks up. On the first page, we see Jim Gordon talking to Martha Wayne saying, "Mar, it's only been a few days. Maybe." She then interrupts saying, "He's my son, Jim. I know him. And something's wrong. I can feel it." We are then taken to Arc M, where a doctor says, "Begin doctor's log, reporting on test subject 27. Having Bruce be subject 27 might be an Easter egg by Scott Snyder, as Batman first appeared in Detective Comics 27. And Bruce, Batman, is subject 27. So there may be a connection there. Anyway, the doctor's log continues to say, "Sedated, male presented at 6 foot 9 inches, 421 pounds. 6 staff members were required to carry him in. 1 back injury occurred. Removal of costume triggered a series of homemade booby traps. Numerous injuries incurred. Once fully stripped, scans showed further contraband hidden throughout his body. After multiple surgeries, staff is now confident all objects have been extracted. Items confiscated include tear gas pellets, sedative pellets, hallucinogenic pellets, a full lockpick kit, blow darts, finger blades, push daggers, trench daggers, various throwing knives, and 1 large spike war club, collapsible. Subject remains under heavy sedation. All data suggests he'll remain incapacitated for at least 48 hours. End doctor's log. As we see on the very last panel of the page, Bruce wakes up. We then get a 2-page spread of Killer Croc inside of his egg, and he's massive. From here, we're taken back to Bruce in his cell, where we see him get up and pull a metal pick from inside his mouth, telling us they didn't get everything Bruce was hiding in his body. Bruce then uses the pick he's just pried from his gums to pick the door and escape, and keep in mind, Bruce is butt naked this entire time. Once free from his cell, he starts making his way through the facility, where he passes a bunch of strange experiments, like a gigantic egg that we could only assume is the egg Killer Croc is being created in. As Bruce is sneaking out, the doctor begins to do her log again, saying, "Begin doctor's log. Subject has escaped his environment and is currently at large. Initial visuals placed him in the Southwest Complex. Current sweeps have him somewhere in transmutation and plasticity, possibly en route to the clay biome." Meaning this is the Absolute Universe version of Clayface, as we see Bruce accidentally start walking on Clayface, which apparently seems to be a bunch of people who have been experimented on, merging together in horrific clay. As Bruce accidentally steps on one of them, they say, "It hurts. It hurts so bad." They then start to grow arms and grab him. Yeah, this is true grotesque body horror at its finest. Bruce then yells at them saying, "Get off." But Bane arrives saying, "Hello again." Bruce then looks up saying, "You," as Bane knocks Bruce out with a single punch. The doctor's log then says subject 27, apprehended by the Prime, will need infirmary stay before return to his environment. End doctor's log. As Bane looks at the unconscious Bruce, he says, "Keep trying, please." We then get a flashback of Bruce training his buddy Waylon, who's a boxer getting ready for his fight with Bibbo, one of the best boxers in the sport. They even end up watching Bibbo's most current fight on TV, as Ozzy says, "He looks pretty big and he looks pretty fast." As everyone says, "Shut up, Ozzy." Waylon is nervous enough as it is about his upcoming fight with him. We're then brought back to Martha, who's at the district attorney's office with Harvey Dent, as she tells him it's been over a month. Harvey says, "The DA's office is doing everything I can, Martha, I swear." She asks, "Then where the hell is my son, Harvey? Where?" From here, we see Bruce back in his cell as the doctor begins her log again, saying, "Report on subject 27 at the 45-day point." For a short period after recovering from his encounter with the Prime, he remained combative, staying active, clearing guano from the floor, and generally maintaining his environment. However, by 20 days in, like subjects 4, 6, 10, 11, and 21 before him, he seemed to accept his situation, becoming docile, then despondent. By 30 days in, he refused to eat, so a feeding tube was inserted into his stomach. Since then, he has barely moved, even when staff has gone in to clean his port. It's the staff's diagnosis, therefore, that subject 27 has finally fallen into total submission. End doctor's log. But the doctor would be wrong, because once the staff enter to change his feeding bag, Bruce gets up and starts fighting them, kicking one straight in the head as the doctor realizes Bruce was putting on an act. And he did so in order to prepare for another aggression. The doctor goes on to say data suggests he extracted a number of his own teeth, a mix of incisor and premolars, to use for manual combat. As we see, Bruce freaking took out his own teeth, then taped them to his fists to use as spikes of sorts to punch people with. But it gets crazier. The doctor even says that subject 27 also managed to adjust his feeding tube to gain access to his own raw stomach acid, at which point he takes the tube, squeezes it, and shoots the acid on on one of the staff members' face, burning him. The doctor then says, but perhaps most impressive was what he did with his latrine. After collecting a large amount of guano inside and then urinating on it for weeks, Subject 27 was able to create a highly flammable compound, not unlike gunpowder, which he then used to explode the wall of his cell and escape again. We then see Bruce once again running by the gigantic Killer Croc egg, but this time it's cracked open with nothing inside, telling us Croc is now free. Once Bruce is running in the halls of Arkham, he starts yelling, "Go to hell, you hear me?" He then tries to escape and ends up in the Isley ecosystem, the poison ivy of this world, or at least where she will come from, as we see living trees with eyes and teeth and a humanoid plant monster or monsters with vines starting to attack Bruce, as one of them says, "Stay out. The green wants out. Let us out." But once again, Bane arrives saying, "Hey there," while tearing the plant monster off of Bruce, as the plant monster is literally shoving its tongue inside of Bruce's mouth and trying to tear out his eyeball. But once Bane gets the creature off of him, he yet again with a single punch takes out Bruce while saying, "So close. Don't give up, please," as Bruce is sent to the infirmary once more. After this, we get another flashback of Bruce watching reels of Bibbo on his computer to study his moves to help Waylon train, as Selina Kyle is like, "Yeah, but you need to help me go steal some stuff." And he's like, "No, I can't. I'm studying to help Waylon," but she says, "You have to tell Waylon." He's like, "That he doesn't have a chance?" "I can't. It'll crush him." She replies, "Crush him worse than Bibbo?" He replies, "I'm his best friend." Then before leaving by herself, she says, "And cheering him on some death spiral isn't being his friend. You need to tell him the truth after we do this," suggesting she's convincing him to go. We then see Bruce's mom is still looking for him, literally posting missing signs of him all over Gotham. We're then brought back to Bruce, where we see he's been experimented on by Arkham. As the doctor's log reads, day 91, Subject 27 continues to show remarkable resilience. After 2 weeks of surgeries, he has managed to survive the full cycle, unlike all 26 subjects before him. While there were multiple incidences when the staff thought he would expire, 27 continually recovered. As of this recording, sutures and grafts are all holding. His vitals are stable. 27's body is ready. All that remains is for him to finally surrender in spirit. The excitement among the staff is palpable, the belief that he has been broken. The Prime is more judicious, as am I. He suggested we test 27 one more time as we see them lower Bruce's suit into the cell so he could suit up and try to escape yet again. And let me tell you something, now that Bruce has his bat suit back on, he's pissed, because once he suits up, he literally runs through the wall. He then passes the Langstrom experiment, which we could only assume is Man-Bat, before making his way to a bunch of creatures that block him as they start saying, "Help us." Batman just looks at them saying, "I don't know how." They say, "Then make it stop," essentially asking for Batman to kill them, putting them out of their misery. At which point, Bane shows up again saying, "There you are," kicking Batman in the face while saying, "I knew you had one more in you." Bane continues his rampage saying, "We're more alike than you know, friend. I'm trying to save you the pain I went through. It'll take more pain now, but you'll thank me in the end, I promise." As he punches Batman into Killer Croc's habitat where the broken egg is. The doctor's log then says we'll need extensive infirmary stay before returning to his environment. As Bane says, "Forgive my crude translation, but there's a saying I find useful. It's not the strongest or most intelligent of us who survive this war called life, but instead the most adaptive to." And before he could say change, Killer Croc comes jumping out of his habitat as Bane shattered the glass, punching Batman into it. Killer Croc then tail whips Bane on top of several of the staff members. And remember, since Bane is like 3 stories tall and probably over 1,000 pounds, he crushes them when he lands on them. He quite literally squashes them like bugs, and they show it, which is gross yet awesome. Some of the surviving staff members then say, "He fell on them. I think they're," but when someone the size of a small building falls on you, you're not surviving. But those surviving staff members soon meet their end when Killer Croc sees them and eats them both in one bite. Batman, who's watching all this, says, "Waylon?" As Killer Croc turns around and stares at Batman, Bruce says, "It's me, Bruce." Killer Croc and or Waylon then gets super close to Batman's face, even grabbing him by the neck, as we get a flashback of Bruce talking to Waylon saying, "Of course I believe you could win. You're Waylon Croc Jones. Now let's get the hell back in the ring," as on the next page we see Batman riding Killer Croc like a dragon. Let me tell you, this Killer Croc looks insane. He's huge, lanky, and super intimidating, and the way they did his teeth, where they basically go all the way down his neck, with his head being a skull on the tip of his head or whatever it's called, is all kinds of creepy. And on the final page of the issue, we see Bane getting up saying, "I was sane. It's not the strongest or the most intelligent of us who survives this war called life, but the most adaptive to change." Batman then says, "Shove it up your ass," as Batman escapes Arc M on top of Killer Croc. The Doctor log then then says, Subject 27 continues to exceed expectations, just as the Prime and I predicted. He and Mutation 523 are fleeing to the sewer. End Doctor's log. The Doctor then walks up to Bane saying, excited for the final phase? Bane replies, very excited, Dr. Arkham, because now I truly get to break him. And just like that, the comic ends. Yeah, that was one hell of an issue, and you can't tell me that Killer Croc isn't going to haunt your dreams. Anyway, now on to issue 11. The issue starts off with Alfred narrating, telling Bruce, I should have warned you. I tried. I almost managed it. We were in the Batmobile crossing the bay to that terrible place, and I started to tell you about him. But when you turned to me, I just froze and wished you good luck instead. Good luck like an old fool. The truth is, I was afraid. Maybe of just naming him, making him real, conjuring him up. But now he's here, and he's coming for you at this very moment. Wherever you are, kid, I'm sorry. This is what I should have told you that night. It's the story of Bane and how he breaks your back. We then get a 2-page spread of a man in a white hat surrounded by women in bikinis watching a city on fire. After this, Alfred continues to narrate, giving us the story of Bane, saying it begins on an island called Santa Presca. A boy is born. The boy's father is a rebel leader. His group has been fighting for Santa Presca's freedom for over 100 years. His grandfather led it, then his father, and now him. The group's flag shows Santa Presca's national bird, the royal quetzal. And one day soon, the boy's father tells him, when we have one piece, that bird will fly free. Can you see it, my boy? The boy answers, yes, father, I see it. However, one night the boy eats some cohoba seeds in hopes of seeing his father's vision. He stares at the flag, but instead of seeing the quetzal, he sees a terrible bird, white and burning with a back like a skull, as he wakes up screaming. Years pass and the boy studies and trains, and they make inroads under his planning. On Tuesday, they take the city capital. They hold it for 3 days. The moment is here, says the father. But on the 4th day, foreign troops are sent in and the rebellion is crushed. The surviving members of the rebellion are sentenced to life in the Penadoru, an infamous prison of Santa Prisca's coast. The boy and father among them. Every night the cold tides flood the cells to the very top, forcing the inmates to fight for small gasping breaths among the dead things washing in and out. The boy learns to sleep hanging from the cage roof. He learns to pick jigger fleas from his skin in the morning. He eats rats for sustenance, and one day a computer is smuggled in. A picture of an actual quetzal is pinned to the screen, and the boy is horrified at how the small bird is weak looking. Years pass and the book brings us to present day Gotham, where Bane has arrived and is rampaging through the streets, killing officers left and right. We're then immediately brought back to the past again, where Alfred continues narrating, saying after 11 years in the infamous prison, the boy, a man now, and the other fighters put a plan in motion. The plan worked, and they were able to escape the prison as they stormed the beach. It's only when they secured the boats that they looked up. None have seen the sky for over a decade. As they climb inside, the boy's father gives him something, a mask made of the flag itself. He tells his son, you are the quetzal, my son. You are the bird of our vision. Today is the day, as Bane puts on his infamous mask for the very first time. As they cross the bay, all they could think about is the fighting ahead. He has multiple strategies to take the beach and the capital. But as they near the shore, the boy sees no tanks, no troops, just a man in white standing in the sunshine with girls in bikinis around him. As the man says, welcome home, calling the boy by his name. The man then says, I have an offer for you. As we can clearly tell, this is the absolute Joker, as he's wearing all white with a fedora that has a purple accent around it. From across the beach, the boy's father watches as the son talks with the strange man. Maybe it's his grin or the way he jokes with the boy, but never laughs. Again, clearly telling us this is absolute Joker, as we know Bane works for him, and this is how that started. Alfred continues narrating, saying, the women with him too. The father could swear he sees things moving in their bellies. The father is just about to intervene when the boy abruptly ends the conversation. Whatever the man was offering, it's over. And with that, the man in white smiles, tips his hat, and leaves as he pats Bane on the chest. Then on the very next page, the man in white, or the Joker, boards the helicopter with the women. Bane's dad then goes to hug Bane, and he reciprocates by crushing his father to death, telling us that whatever the man in white or the Joker was offering him was accepted, as he turned on his father.
All right, so on page 12 of issue 11, Alfred shifts gears and begins to lay out how Bane came to be the monster that is currently hunting Bruce. He says, this is where our true records of him start. A diplomat's plane explodes in Guangzhou. A journalist is slain in Dubai. Pirates are slaughtered in the shipping lanes in the Red Sea. This is where the figure known as Bane emerges. And all of this dialogue is accompanied by panels showing Bane going through Arc M's transformational procedures, followed by increased acts of destruction that, as Alfred puts it, forms a constellation drawn between unsolved murders. Alfred then goes on to explain, our intel suggests suggests that the venom running through his veins is a mixture of acids, proteins, compound activators, and cytokines. It gives him total control over his own muscles, his very cells bent to his will. But even more astounding is the way it enhances his mind. Before, there was only so much he could learn, but now, suddenly he can hold books, whole libraries in his head. Every method of fighting, he knows. Every weapon, he knows. Every battle from ancient times to now, he knows. From the strategies of Sumerian warrior kings to the most current algorithmic doctrine, and he is here for you, Bruce. So these pages really paint a very clear picture of just how dangerous Bane truly is and how serious the situation is for Bruce. Because as we explained in the previous episode, the absolute version of Bane is not only a physical behemoth, he's a walking library and a strategic genius. But this is also where Alfred's dialogue pivots from debriefing Bruce on everything they know about Bane to giving him what he thinks is the likely scenario for how things would play out if Bane were to come for him right now. So on the next panel, we see Bane approaching a set of locked doors, and Alfred says he could be right outside your door at this very moment, followed by a couple of pages that play out what that battle between Batman and Bane in a hypothetical scenario would look like. But we don't just see it, Alfred details it by continuing to say, I know you by now, kid, well enough to understand you'll fight, that you'll have a plan too, a good one, just like the plans he drew up when he was that boy back on Santa Prisca. A plan based on your knowledge of this place, because this is your home, Gotham, as the island was his. He then walks Bruce through the fight step by brutal step until finally saying, you can't win, kid. There's no plan of attack he hasn't studied, no strategy he doesn't know. But more than this, he knows you, because he was you when he was that boy on Santa Prisca, fighting his heart out, planning, building, strategizing. For what? Peace? No more. We then get several grisly panels of Bane dismantling Bruce limb by limb with his own axe, as Alfred continues to explain that Bane now believes the bird symbol on his mask represents the phoenix, and that from Bane's warped perspective, war is the fire through which men are burned and reborn. Alfred goes on to say, Bane is its greatest disciple, a monument to it. For what is war if not our highest calling? Peace? Peace is death. War is life. And this is followed by a full page of Bane smashing Bruce's face in. Again, this is all in Alfred's mind, but gruesome nonetheless. Anyway, on the next page, the hypothetical scenario continues to play out, with Bane now taking the completely wrecked Bruce to Arc M, where they put him through the same procedure they put Bane through, during which Alfred begins to wonder about how the Joker convinced Bane to turn on his father all those years ago. He says, sometimes I try to imagine what the man in white said to him on the beach that day. The man made of stories, the first one appearing so long ago, about a child dressed as a clown in a Gotham alley. The man who never laughs, who haunts the world. They say he grows new teeth every day, that he has another face. And this is directly teasing the Joker's final monstrous form that was just revealed by Scott Snyder for Absolute Batman issue 15. And he looks absolutely terrifying in the best way possible. I have no idea what Bruce is going to do with all that. Anyway, Alfred goes on to say, I can almost hear his pitch, can't you? Picture him standing before you in the sunshine, handsome as an angel, hand outstretched. You can go on fighting like this, he says. It's your choice. Maybe you'll take the city again. Maybe you'll take the whole island. Maybe your peace will last long enough for you to have a son, for you to watch him walk on this very beach. But you know in your heart, as I do, that war will come for the island again. But there is another way. Close your eyes and see it. Picture Santa Prisca thriving. Picture schools with computers and tablets. Picture roads, hospitals, jobs. I can make it so with one phone call, son. Can you see it though? Your home, peaceful, free? With Alfred then concluding that this Thanos-like pitch is what could have determined Bane's path. Then on the next page, as we continue to see images of what Arc M has in store for Bruce, we learn that part of Bane's job is to find and bring in subjects that they can make into warriors in his image, to work for the Man in White and his allies. And it's at this point that Alfred reveals two subjects that he's aware of. One in Russia called the KG Beast, and the other in the Middle East codenamed Deathstroke. Alfred then goes on to say that none have been able to survive the full procedure as Bane did, but that each were transformed into something new. So we don't know how many of these transformed warrior subjects are out there, but this was a very cool way to let us know that absolute versions of KG Beast and Deathstroke are coming at some point down the line. Anyway, Pennyworth then shifts again as he tells Bruce that Bane thinks he is the first one worthy to wear his mask, and for this reason, he is setting the stage to force Bruce down the same path that he chose for himself. Alfred's narration to Bruce continues saying, they say the devil knocks 3 times, and this is your second chance, kid. Picture it, he's saying to you, Bruce. Picture Gotham thriving, an island gleaming and bright. We then get several panels revealing that Bane has succeeded in transforming Santa Prisca into a peaceful and prosperous place. Or should I say, the Joker was true to his word in exchange for Bane selling his soul and completing whatever evil act he's tasked with. But we also learn that Bane has a family now, and that while they don't understand what he is or what he does, they know he has made their home thrive. Alfred then says, "This is the story I should have told you, kid, because it's the story they want for you. It's what he's offering to become the hero Gotham needs." As we get a full look at what Bane, Arkham, and the Man in White have in store for Bruce, which is to turn him into a Batman version of Bane. And I've really got to tip my hat to Scott Snyder here, because this whole narration from Alfred laying out a crazy compelling test of character for this version of Batman is so freaking good, because he's also simultaneously building and deepening his rogues gallery throughout. It's just got every earmark of a seasoned writer firing on all cylinders, so I gotta give him his flowers. But on the final page of issue 11, after describing to Bruce in excruciating detail what is being planned for him and the deal with the devil that will be laid at his feet, Alfred drops the bad news and the twist as he tells him that Bane knows that for his plan to work, Bruce can't just be broken. He has to choose to break, like he did. He has to choose to break his own back and offer it up. However, Alfred concludes by saying, "You won't though, will you? You're still out there somewhere, unbroken, safe for now. I know it, and he knows it too. That's why he didn't go to your door, but instead went to theirs, because he knows the real way to break you is by breaking them." As we see that the locked doors Bane was approaching earlier was to Wayland's gym, revealing that it was Bruce's friends, Eddie, Harvey, and Ozzy that he was after all along. And that amazing cliffhanger leads us right into issue 12. Alright, so Absolute Batman issue 12 opens up in the sewers of Gotham, where we finally see where Batman and Killer Croc have escaped to after breaking out of the Arkham facility at the end of issue 10. A severely beaten down Batman tells Wayland, "You saved me," to which Croc replies, "Yes, now save me." And Snyder has chosen to have Croc speak with a snake-like hiss, which is an interesting idea. Anyway, Batman responds, "I will, I swear, I'll find a cure." But Croc isn't interested in a cure. He walks toward him while yelling, "No, the hunger, Bruce, it hurts too much. Please, save me." Bruce then realizes that Wayland is asking him to end his life, and when he tries to reason with him, Croc screams, "Do it!" Batman then takes out the blade he keeps in his bat ear and raises it in the air, but he can't do it. So Croc rips the blade from Batman's hand and tries to do the job himself, but Bruce grabs Wayland's hand and kicks him in the jaw to stop him, refusing to let his friend die. This makes Wayland furious, and he roars in Batman's face before saying, "I should have left you in that place." He then dives back into the water and disappears into the sewers, as Bruce begs him to stay so they can beat the situation together, but it's to no avail. Yes, this is off to a seriously tragic start, but trust me when I tell you, it's about to get much worse. So on the next page, we are taken to a flashback where we learn that Bruce and Selina were about to sign a lease for a nice new apartment overlooking Gotham. But after the real estate agent leaves the room to give them time to look at their new place, Selina turns to Bruce and asks what's bothering him. And after trying to joke, Bruce admits it's about Wayland and says, "I don't know what to do." To which she replies, "Did you tell him the truth?" But Bruce tells her he's not going to listen. I know him. He really believes he can win, referring to his upcoming boxing match with Bibbo. Selina then hugs him and says, "Then help him win." And when Bruce asks how, she responds by saying, "The same way we got this spot. If the rules aren't fair, stop playing by them." Which has some interesting implications, but we'll have to see how all this plays out when we get to Catwoman's origin in issue 13. From here, we return to the present, where we find Bruce waking up in a medical bed, followed by Alfred Pennyworth walking up saying, "Easy, easy." Bruce then asks how long he'd been out, to which Pennyworth replies, "It's been 20 days since I found you collapsed on the floor of this place." This obviously shocks Bruce, but Alfred tells him, "You need a lot more. The things they did to your body, I'm not sure you fully comprehend. There's a delivery system woven into your spine and brain, all loaded with that compound venom," as we simultaneously get a visual of the veins from Bruce's back to his skull filled with the same green venom that flows through Bane. Bruce then gets up and dismissively tells Alfred he's fine, to which an annoyed Pennyworth responds by saying, "No, kid, you need to hear this. What you did, things have changed now. You're in it, you understand?" But Bruce is unfazed and just puts on sunglasses while replying, "I get it. Now I'm gonna need you to move." From here, Bruce slowly makes his way to his mother's house, but all along the way, he finds himself in excruciating pain as the venom compound continues to poison his bloodstream, seemingly transforming him slowly, which definitely makes you wonder if we are headed towards Absolute Batman being a version of the Dark Knight with superhuman powers. So I guess we can throw that on the where's that going pile. Anyway, Bruce eventually makes it to his mother's place, and when she sees him walk in the door, she runs to him saying, "Oh, thank God." That is, before slapping the crap out of him and then hugging him as he says, "I'm so sorry." Bruce then tries to explain what happened to him, but Martha stops him and says, "Just let me hold you for a while. I was so scared of getting that phone call again. Every time it rang. And then with what happened to Ozzy but Bruce interrupts saying, "Hold on, Ozzy?" We're then given the answer to what Martha was talking about as we cut to Gotham Hospital, where Bruce is talking to Jim Gordon and thanking him for watching over his mom. Gordon tells him, "Your family, son, and the truth is, looking at you, if I was still commissioner, I'd arrest you before I'd let you walk out of this place without a doctor checking you out." However, the acting commissioner then chimes in and tells Bruce that he's giving him 5 minutes with Ozzy out of respect for Jim. So an officer then opens the hospital room door while saying he's in there, what's left of him. And when Bruce walks in, he's greeted by Dr. Tompkins, who says, "Bruce, hold on. Did anyone explain?" But Bruce just cuts her off by saying, "Please, Dr. Tompkins, just let me see him." So she replies, "All right, but I have to warn you, Bruce, I've never seen anything like it." At that moment, Bruce walks past the curtain and a look of shock comes over his face as we get our first look at Ozzy, who has been completely mutilated. He basically looks like he's been taken apart and put back together again with spare parts. Dr. Tompkins then tells Bruce, whoever did this is an abomination, as we start to get panels that show us exactly what Bane did to Ozzy. Essentially, after finding the three men together, Bane says hello and then grabs Ozzy by the face while telling him, "You want so badly to be big, don't you? The pink Jim Raw muscles, the lifts in your shoes." At which point he begins to beat Ozzy mercilessly as we simultaneously get dialogue from Dr. Tompkins to Bruce that explains they broke nearly every bone in Oswald's body, some in multiple places, but somehow they did it in a way that missed each vital organ. It was precise, surgical, cruel beyond measure. If Oswald lives, he'll be almost 2 feet shorter, and his hands, his feet, it'll be hard, Bruce, a life of constant pain, which is just about the most horrific description of a beating that one could imagine. But Bane didn't just beat him randomly. He did it very precisely so that he would survive to haunt Bruce. Needless to say, this is going to give us a crazy tragic version of Penguin. But this is only the beginning of the horror show Bane left behind for Bruce. So when he tells Dr. Tompkins, "I'll do whatever I can, we all will," followed by asking her if Harvey had come by. At which point Dr. Tompkins replies, "Harvey, did they not tell you? Harvey's in the next room." We then cut to Harvey's hospital room where he's lying in the bed wrapped in bandages, as Dr. Tompkins tells Bruce 3rd to 4th degree burns across the left side of his body, straight 50%. But worse, they crushed his skull, cracked it down the center. When the police found him, his head was basically lying in 2 separate parts. But Harvey then wakes up and ekes out the word "Flass." So Bruce takes his hand and says, "Harv, it's Bruce." And Harvey, almost delirious, then tells him, "You remember that one truant cop when we were kids, Bruce? Flass, always one step ahead no matter how stealthy we tried to be. And when he caught you, he got that look, like, I see you. Do you remember him?" At this point, the panels begin to intercut between the hospital room and flashbacks showing what Bane did to Harvey, starting with Harvey trying to protect Ozzy by attacking Bane with a bottle. But Bane just lifts him in the air by his neck and takes the bottle while saying, "Let me guess, the big brother of this little group, the protector," and yet followed by brutally crushing Harvey's head with the bottle in a single Hulk-style thunderclap. Then back at the hospital, Harvey continues to talk about Flass, saying, like he knew all the crap you were hiding, and me, he had this special hate for me. "You're fooling yourself," he'd say. "You're also destined to be the traitor, because your friends, they're all outlaws. And you, with your principles, your ambitions, those eyes, you stick with these losers, they'll bring you down hard," Flass would say to me. We then see Bane holding a poker chip and a match while standing over Harvey, who is now laying in a puddle of alcohol from that bottle. Bane continues to tell Harvey, "You established this ritual long ago, didn't you? This poker game, a safe place where the stakes are void, where you can be both forever, outlaw and lawman, friend and enemy, a microcosm, gambling for plastic coins. All pretend, but the time for pretending is over." And after saying this, he sets the poker chip on fire and drops it into the puddle of alcohol while holding Harvey down with his boot, forcing exactly half of Harvey's body to burn. We then get the first indication of Harvey's new duality as we see split panels of each side of Harvey's face as he repeatedly says that Flass was right. He goes on to say, "I heard he's retired somewhere, Flass. Metropolis, Gateway City. I should look him up." But a now visibly angry Bruce puts his head down and tells him, "I'm so sorry, Harvey. This is all my fault." And Harvey quickly responds by saying, yes it is. You gambled for real, Bruce. Put it all out there. Your friends, the city, everything. All the chips." He then hands Bruce the poker chip Bane used to light him on fire before saying, "Now get out of here. If it's any consolation though, I only hate you half the time." And with that, we have another heartbreak of a villain's origin, this time for Two-Face. And it seems this version of the character will likely be flipping a poker chip instead of a coin. Anyway, after leaving the hospital angry and distraught, Bruce heads to check on Eddie, fearing Bane had gotten to him as well. And when he gets to his place, Bruce finds him sitting at his workbench with his back toward him, so he asks, "Eddie, are you alright?" And Eddie replies, "I'm fine, Bruce, just over here working." Now Bruce is initially relieved and says, "Thank God, I thought maybe he hurt you too." But Bruce quickly quickly realizes things were not fine as Eddie replies, "No, he didn't hurt me. In fact, he was very gentlemanly. He challenged me to a friendly battle of wits." Bruce then reluctantly moves closer so we can get a look at his friend as Eddie continues tinkering with something while saying, "He said if I won, he'd let me kill him. He even handed me his gun. Can you believe it? I'll bet you like riddles," he said. Now at this point, Bruce is close enough to see that Eddie has also been mutilated and asks him, "What did you do?" But Eddie just ignores him, and as we get a panel showing Bane gouging out Eddie's eyes, Eddie just continues to say, "It only took him a minute to beat me, and before I knew it, he was shaking my head, slamming the front of my brain into my skull. The frontal lobe, the part responsible for intelligence, bang, it was wild, Bruce." And suddenly facts became questions, questions everywhere. We then get our first clear look at Eddie as he turns to face Bruce, and he now has holes where his eyes used to be, a partially exposed brain, and he has implanted parts of the AI Riddler bot he was building into his brain and skull. Eddie goes on to tell Bruce, "He didn't hurt me at all. He helped me. He was challenging me. Maybe he was challenging all of us to become more, become what we're meant to be." But through gritted teeth, Bruce replies, "Eddie, we need to get you to a hospital." However, before he can say another word, Bruce screams in pain as the venom continues to work its way through Bruce's body, this time with the veins in his arm glowing green, which causes Eddie to say, "Oh, it looks like he challenged you too, Bruce. So riddle me this. What are you gonna do about it?" And now, as we see the look on Bruce's face, you can see that everything Alfred warned him about in issue 11 is starting to take shape. But on the next page, we are given another flashback to Bruce and Selina, who are now approaching Carmine Falcone on a golf course to offer him a deal regarding Waylon's fight with Bibbo. Falcone tells them, "Hold on a minute. I know you. You're Waylon Croc Jones' trainer, aren't you? Let me guess. You want Bibbo to go easy on your boy. Or maybe you're looking to cash out." But Bruce replies, "What's in the bag is a gesture. Some of the finest gold work in the city." To which Falcone says, "How do I even know it's real?" And Bruce then raises the stakes by telling him, "Maybe because it's yours. Stolen from apartments you own." This obviously stuns Falcone, but Bruce and Selina finish by telling him, "We're not looking to cash out. We're looking to raise." So again, clearly Bruce and Selina had gotten into some stuff, and this is setting the table for the full story in the next issue or two. But it's also part of this broader spiderweb that Snyder is weaving to flesh out a complex and compelling world where the lines between hero and villain are very thin. And that pattern just continues over the next 4 panels as we jump back to the present to see Batman on a video call with a member of the Red Hood gang, quietly telling them to stand down and that some mystery plan was off. But the red hooded figure responds by saying, "Nothing's off. You don't get to tell the Red Hood gang what's..." But before he can finish that sentence, Batman disconnects the call to keep Alfred from hearing it. This, of course, makes Alfred suspicious, so he asks, "What was that about?" But as usual, Batman dodges the question by saying, "You were right. When the Black Mask offered that deal, I didn't even consider it. Not really. I just didn't see it." Alfred responds by asking, "So that's it, kid? You closing down operations?" However, Batman punches the table and screams, "He broke them, Pennyworth. My friends." To which Pennyworth calmly replies, "That's right, he did. The question is, are you going to let him break you? You chose this, Bruce. I told you, you're in it now. Everything has changed, and there's no going back. There's only through. So get ready, because it's only going to get..." But now Alfred is cut off as the alarm goes off to the Batcave, and Bruce says, "Someone breached the hatch." To which Pennyworth responds, "He's here. Bane." He then opens a case while saying, "All right, he loves war so much, let's bloody give it to him." We then get a full page of Batman and Pennyworth standing back to back with Alfred wielding a Gatling gun and Bruce holding his axe. However, when nothing happens, they decide to split up. And as Pennyworth nervously starts advancing in the dark, he starts yelling, "Where are you? Come out and face us." But before he knows what hit him, we see what looks like a massive tail sneak up on him from above. It then grabs him by the neck, followed by someone knocking Alfred unconscious. However, at this point, Batman walks up and says, "You, what are you doing here?" And on the final page of the issue, we see it's absolute Catwoman as she says, "Well, hello to you too, Bruce." And with that, we're on to issue 13. All right, so the book, which is part 5 of the Abomination arc, opens with yet another flashback of Bruce Wayne and Selina Kyle. This time, we find them embracing on an L train while returning home after making a pretty bold offer to Carmine Falcone on his golf course. Selina tells Bruce, "I didn't know you had that in you, Wayne." Bruce then repeats something she said to him in issue 12 as he says, "If the rules aren't fair, right, Kyle?" But Selina realizes that Bruce isn't sure about what they just did, so she grabs his face and says, "Look at me. This is how Waylon wins, how we all win." From here, we return to the present and the scene in the Batcave where things left off at the end of issue 12, with Selina now fully dressed as absolute Catwoman, having just broken into the Batcave and choked out Alfred. A seemingly angry Bruce then asks Selina, "Why are you here?" To which she responds, "Look at us. Our ears match. I'm here because your mother called me." But Bruce isn't buying and he responds, "I'll ask one more time. But Selina doubles down and says she did actually. But come on, Bruce. You've been missing for months. I was worried, all right? I came to help. Or Bruce snaps back, I don't need your help. She then picks up a part of the tail/rope that she used to choke out Alfred and says, clearly, I mean, you've got such a superstar team already. Now at this point, Alfred starts to come through and said, I've read about you, the Catwoman. What you pulled in Penang, no loyalty. But Catwoman's not having it and she starts choking him out yet again with this tail/rope of hers. And while it's not exactly clear how this rope tail of hers works, it is clear that her suit and the technology she's using is the same that we saw from Black Mask early in this series. Anyway, while choking Alfred out, she says, all right, look, if I'm not wanted, what's it gonna be? She then lets go of Alfred again and he says, don't trust her, kid, to which Bruce responds, enough, Pennyworth. I don't need the advice. She's leaving right now. However, this immediately cuts to a very romantic scene between Bruce and Selina, and needless to say, she did not leave. But this very much keeps Bruce and Selina's relationship very similar to what we're used to in the main DC continuity, with their on-again, off-again romance. Anyway, as the sun starts to come up and they're both laying there, Selina gets her first look at what Ark-M did to Bruce, including the nice little Ark-M branding that's similar to Bane's mask at the base of his neck. Selina then works up the courage and says, Bruce, what did they do to you? To which Bruce responds, is that really what you want to talk about, C? She replies, no, but Bruce replies with questions of his own saying, so your helmet. It looks a lot like the gear Black Mask uses. And turnabout's fair play, so Selina replies, is that really what you want to talk about, Bruce? He also says no and instead says, you want to go on a date? Followed by a full page of Batman and Catwoman flying through the city. Now, for those of you who read Absolute Batman issue 12 or saw our episode on the issue, you know that at the end of the issue, after Batman had learned what Bane had done to his friends, he had a mysterious video call with the Red Hood gang and called off whatever it is they were planning together. Now, fast forward and we see Batman and Catwoman landing on the rooftop of a building at a pier, and Batman is explaining to Catwoman they're called the Red Hood. They're an outlaw collective, hacking, disruption. We had a loose alliance. They then jump down to the boardwalk below and Catwoman asks, and this is their cool hangout spot? So where are they? And just as she finishes asking that question, the Red Hood gang appears behind them saying, you're not welcome, followed by Batman saying, we're not leaving until we speak with your leader. The Red Hood then say, have it your way, and they start to attack both Batman and Catwoman, with Catwoman flying through the air saying, I like this date. She then pulls the automatic weapon she's been carrying around on her back and loads her tail into it like a magazine, followed by unloading on the entire Red Hood gang, seemingly taking them all out, which of course freaks Batman out and he says, what are you doing? They're just kids. Followed by a couple of panels where Selina says, you know why you hate kids. Take it easy. It's just a catnap. As we see that she's hit all of the Red Hood members with tranquilizer darts, knocking them unconscious. All except one, that is, who is about to fire on them with an RPG from the top of the Ferris wheel. Batman catches it just in time and throws Selina to the side while screaming, look out. He then goes full rage mode and hulks out, slamming his body into the base of the Ferris wheel, obliterating it, which of course knocks the Ferris wheel and the shooter into the water. Selina then runs up to Bruce, who has the Ark-M venom running through his veins, and asks, what the heck was that? But Bruce, who is clearly one step closer to the venom taking over, screams, get away from me, now. At this point, the rest of the Red Hood gang appears out of nowhere saying, look at him, he's one of them. Then another says, boss was right, they are making monsters. And Selina, who quickly realizes they are surrounded, says, Bruce, listen to my voice. I'm right here. You need to calm down, okay? Get it under control. But just as the Red Hood gang is about to attack at full force, Bruce says, wait, I told you to stand down because the truth is they almost broke me in a place called Ark-M where they do make monsters. Abominations like a man called Bane. But they didn't break me. And now I'm gonna destroy him. And not just him, his bosses, Ark-M. I'm gonna burn it all to the ground. But I need your help. Now the Red Hood gang members don't believe him and one says, you're the Abomination Man, get him. But at that moment, the leader finally speaks up and says, hold it. And as she lowers her hood, she says, I was never sure about you. I'm still not. But if you're really talking about burning down Ark-M, now you're speaking my language. Name's Harley Quinn, leader of the Red Hood. So what's the plan? So as we flip the page, we are finally introduced to the Absolute Universe version of Harley Quinn, and she looks completely different. Yes, the Absolute version of every character we've seen so far looks completely different from what we're used to, but this is like a total departure, man. And the fact that she's the leader of a resistance movement is a very interesting spin. However, on the next page, we are returned to Ark-M, where we see Bane is having a surgical procedure done and a maximum infusion of the Ark-M venom pumped into his body, followed by the doctor walking in saying, good news. We've managed to push your system even further. As of this moment, you're officially at maximum infusion. We never imagined a human body could reach these levels. If I may say so, it's a real inspiration working with you, Bane. You're a dang unicorn. But remember, in the Absolute Universe, Bane isn't just strong, he's a genius. And he responds by saying, a wild ass, good for work, whose meat is too bitter to eat. That's from the first ever description of a unicorn, Doctor. 5th century BC. He then calmly follows this by saying, soon you'll have my replacement, and he'll have his new Bane. Then I'll finally go home. And this is where we realize the driving factors for what Bane is doing to Batman. We already knew that he wanted Batman to take his place, but now we get confirmation that it's because he wants to go home. And he can't do so until he fulfills the task of replacing himself and giving the Joker a new weapon. The Doctor then asks, forgive me for asking, but you really believe he'll let you go? To which Bane responds, he has to. I've given him everything. Any moment now, Batman will give in and my work will be over. But they're interrupted by one of the other scientists in the room who says, Doctor, you're going to want to see this. As we see Batman on his computer screen. We are then taken to a montage of screens all across Gotham as Batman has hijacked the news feeds. And he's done so to relay a message to the entire city saying, people of Gotham, our city is under attack, not by criminals or outlaws, but by its own leaders. Leaders who have sold Gotham out to line their own pockets. They've sold our safety, our freedom. There's nothing they won't sell. They've even sold the ground beneath our feet, where right now they're growing actual monsters, horrors too terrible to imagine. I tried to show you with Black Mask, but I made the mistake of relying on the networks. Not anymore. This time, I'll show you myself, because I'm gonna drag one of these monsters out into the light for all of you to see. And then I'm gonna beat it. I'm talking about you, Bane. I know you're listening. Tomorrow, midnight, the old Veterans Arena. You and me, alone. You win, I'll go back to Arkham and become whatever you want. But you won't win. And you, people of Gotham, you get to watch. And just in case any of you are wondering who I am, I'm Batman. So as you can clearly see, Batman has decided to use the Arkham venom that's flowing through his veins, and he is slowly becoming the monster, or at the very least, giving into its impulses. But as we flip the page, we are taken back to the past and Gotham Arena, where we are finally given the details of the deal Bruce made with Falcone. And it starts with Waylon Jones saying, all the way to the 7th, to which Bruce replies, the end of the 7th way. You last right up to the bell. That's much farther than anyone has you going. Every single site has you down by the 2nd, maybe the 3rd. This way, you go out with dignity and make enough cash to open the gym. You win. But as we see the two of them sitting together in the stands, Waylon is clearly upset by this. And he tells Bruce, do you know why I hired you to train me, Bruce? I mean, skill-wise, you're mediocre at best. I hired you because you're my best friend. Guys like Bibbo, Falcone, they're ruining our city. So no, I don't want to cut a deal with them. I want to beat them here in this ring with someone in my corner who believes in me, man. Believes in all of it and what we've been through. You, me, the odds we've overcome. I thought you were that person, but I guess I was wrong. So you, Bruce Wayne, are fired. Bruce tries to speak, but Waylon is not interested and he shoves Bruce while saying no. And I'm going past the 7th. I'm going to win the whole thing. Now go, get out of here. I have a fight to get ready for. So like I said earlier, while we're not getting the full origin story for Absolute Catwoman in this issue, or what fell apart between her and Bruce between these flashbacks and the present, this situation with Waylon Jones and his fight against Bibbo certainly plants the seeds to explain both. But on the next page, we return back to the present and we once again find ourselves in the Batcave, where Selina is telling Bruce there's not much around the vet to use to your advantage. And Bruce replies, no, it's isolated, run down, but that's the idea. Just me and him, last man standing. However, Selina, who is getting more and more concerned by the minute, says, I get it. I just need you to promise me one thing. Then Selina tells him, don't use the venom, Bruce. It's what they want. It's not worth it. I've seen what it does to people. But Bruce, who doesn't even look up from his computer, replies, what it does to people? When I used it, I could see every move those Red Hood kids were going to make. I was 10 steps ahead. I just have to learn to control it. But venom is the only way I can win. Catwoman responds, it's not the only way. You have people who can help. I can help. But Bruce pauses before telling her, you haven't seen him, what he can do. Followed by Catwoman putting her hand on his chest and saying, but I have. And they're my friends too, Bruce. Even when I'm not here. I want to take this Bane down as badly as you do, but not like this. But despite her pleading, Batman doesn't budge, and he just repeats her words back to her yet again, saying, if the rules aren't fair, stop playing by them. Sound familiar? She tells him, maybe I was wrong, to which he replies, easy to say now. Look at your helmet, your gear. Don't tell me you got where you are by playing clean. To which Selina replies, no, I didn't, but you're better than this. You always were. And this is where things seemingly really start to take a turn for Absolute Batman as he replies, not anymore. I'm gonna freaking wreck him, and I'm using the venom. If you can't handle it, then maybe you should go again. This completely stuns Selina, and after a pause, she says, maybe I should. Take care of yourself, Wayne. Followed by Alfred walking up and past Selina as he tells her, don't let the door hit you. We then see that Alfred
Alfred is carrying a cooler and he hands it to Batman while saying, "I'd ask if you're all right, but I already know the answer. Fine." To which Batman replies, "I am fine." Now this is another thing that's really starting to get interesting, and that is the behavior of Alfred in this series. Initially, Snyder did a great job of selling him as this unexpected mentor to Bruce, but as the issues have gone on, he has become increasingly suspicious with some of the things he has encouraged in Bruce. And that's the most evident right here as he tells Bruce, "Good. See, this is the part I was telling you about, kid. The part you have to push through, the tunnel. You stop, you even slow down, you'll get ground up. So let go of what you were, that man, soft, weak. Bury him deep in the mud and become what you need to be, what you were meant to be, and rise as the monster. Because this is war, and there are no rules except winning." And as he's saying all of this, we see that the cooler he handed Bruce was full of meat, which Batman left in the sewers to attract Killer Croc. And with a promise for the final showdown in the next issue, this issue comes to an end.
So that leads us to Absolute Batman 14 and the actual conclusion of the Abomination arc. But like I said at the beginning of the episode, we're going to continue on through issue 15 and the Arkham special where we get the origin of Absolute Joker. But first, let's see what happens in the insane final boss battle with Absolute Bane. Alright, so the first page opens up with a montage that perfectly sets the tone for this issue, as we see both Batman and Bane preparing for their big fight, alongside flashbacks, which is really just Bruce remembering everything that Bane has done to his friends. Alfred, however, is interested in one thing, making sure Bruce has his head in the game, and that he's as prepared as possible for what he knows Bruce is about to face. And he says to him, "It's the fight of your life, kid. You ready?" At which point we see that Eddie is actually present and he's saying, I'm ready. But as Bruce is distracted by thoughts of Bane and what he's done to his friends, Alfred continues to say, "There's only enough venom in you for 2 infusions. We use 1 infusion now as a test. Make sure your system can handle it. And we use the other in the ring against Bane." We then get a bunch of panels showing the last interactions Bruce had with several people, including Wayland, Selina, Harvey, his father, and his mother. But Alfred is all business, and he pulls a pistol and holds it up to Bruce's head as he says, "Kid, if your system takes to it, we're good. If not, I'll make it quick. Now what do you want to do?" Followed by Absolute Batman gritting his teeth and saying, "Let's go to freaking war." We then get a crazy splash title page for the conclusion of the Abomination story arc, with Bruce completely baned out, looking like a roid-raged monster with spikes protruding from his back. It's insane. It's just so good. But we gotta keep going, and as we turn the page, we see a news broadcast with the mayor of Gotham, Mayor Hill, stepping up to a podium to give a statement. He says, "Fellow Gothamites, I am here tonight to assure you that despite what the terrorist Batman claims, there are no monsters hidden away beneath our streets. In fact, the only monster in this city is him, and whatever dangerous theatrics he was planning tonight at Veterans Arena will not be happening. Still, we insist that everyone honor the 11 p.m. curfew put in place after the Black Mask attack, and remain home and safe from the Batman's lawless violence." Anyway, from here we are taken back to Mayor Hill, who's now off camera and is talking to Harvey Bullock. And like a true politician, we see that everything he just said on TV is a total lie, and the exact opposite is true. He's actually working directly for the Joker or for Bane, as he tells Bullock, "So the fight happens at midnight. Bullock, it came straight from above. No one gets within 10 blocks of that place, except for Batman and him." Harvey agrees, saying, "Yes, sir, but over the next 2 panels, we are taken to Barbara Gordon, who is sitting in front of the bat cowl she's been using to communicate with Batman while she says, 'I don't know if you can hear me, but if you can, I hope you have a good plan.' Then from here, things really start to ramp up as we are taken to Ark M, where Bane is walking with and talking to Dr. Arkham. The doctor tells Bane, 'You should be aware. According to our data, Subject 27 likely still has at least 1 infusion left in his system.' To which Bane responds, 'I'm counting on it. If his system tolerates the venom, he can be your new project from now on.' Dr. Arkham then responds, 'Fair enough, because with the enhancement, there's no comparison.' Meaning the procedure that we saw Bane going through in issue 13 has taken this dude to yet another level. However, despite this enhancement, Dr. Arkham does tell him, 'But Bane, after this fight, your system will need a long rest. rest, which is exactly what Bane is after anyway, and he tells her, the heart's only true nurse. All I want is rest, Dr. Arkham. One more fight, one more, and I'll have it. We are then taken to Veterans Arena as we see Bane walking through the tunnel and out onto the field. But we also get a flashback of Waylon Croc Jones walking out of that same tunnel on his fight night against Bibbo Babowski. That's right, in this issue we also get the payoff for what happened with Waylon Jones and his fight against Babowski, which includes what happened between Bruce and Waylon after Bruce tried to convince him to throw the fight because he didn't think he could win. But let me not get too far off course. We then see Bane walking out into the darkened field saying, well, here I am. But when no one responds, he screams, I said, here I am. Where's your champion? At which point we see Harley Quinn running through the stadium seats holding a rifle while saying, light 'em up, guys. Followed by the arena lights kicking on to reveal Absolute Batman standing center stage. And now with Batman and Bane face to face, Alfred chimes in from what I can only assume is the Batmobile saying, all right, kid, here we go. Remember the plan. You wear him down, keep at him until he uses up all his venom, and then when he's got nothing left, you use yours. But Batman cuts him off and tells him to stop talking. Bruce then cues Harley, who screams, make him famous. Smile, boys, as we see a member of the Red Hood gang launch a butt ton of drones to air the fight between Bane and Batman for all of Gotham. Bane then looks at Batman and says, ah, the Great Republic watches. I hope you've learned some new techniques so we can give them an actual spectacle. Let's see. Now, I don't know about you, but this is completely reminding me of the scenes in The Dark Knight Rises where Bane takes over Gotham. All right, jumping back to the story, we are then taken to a flashback and the beginning of the Octagon match between Waylon Croc Jones and Bibbo Babowski. As the captions symbolically say, and here they go, a true David and Goliath match. The shocking thing is that Jones seems to have no one in his corner, no trainer, nobody. He's a man alone. And this is followed by Bane telling Batman, so, your move. At which point we see Batman step on a device that turns out to be a detonation trigger. This then strategically sets off explosives that are towering over the arena. Bane then looks up as the building breaks in half and begins to collapse inward as Batman says, I call this move, welcome to Gotham. As an entire building crashes down onto Bane as a first strike from Batman, which I'd say, is a pretty solid first move. But here's the craziest part. All it does is tick Bane off. And again, I love that we're getting these symbolic cutbacks to the fight between Waylon and Bibbo and the narration perfectly aligning with what's happening between Batman and Bane. As we see the fight commentator saying Jones comes out swinging. Southpaw too seems he has a trick or two up his sleeve. And this is followed by Alfred flying in what turns out to be a new Batmobile, or at least some kind of a new Bat assault vehicle. It's insane. Alfred just screams incoming as Bane tells Batman, you think I don't see what you're doing, little one? Alfred then tells Batman, I'm locked in, kid. And Batman screams fire. At which point we see a Bat assault vehicle launch a couple of spears into the back of Bane and then rams him straight through. Flashback fight commentary then says 3 rounds into this heavyweight bout and Jones is still bringing it to the champ. And this is also where we start to get internal dialogue from Alfred saying, as I come around to hit Bane again, I make the mistake of glancing at him. He's already healed, but how? And his size, something is wrong. His speed too, I'm tumbling through the air before I knew it. As we see that Bane has now just swatted this Bat assault vehicle like it was nothing. As he screams, come on, is that all you've got? Alfred's dialogue then says, but what Batman lacks in power and speed, he makes up for it in brutality. We then see Batman flying through the air and use his kinetic cape to spear Bane in the eye and rip it out of the socket. And Dragata did not spare a single detail as Alfred continues to say, he's a genius at violence and I've known some prodigies in my day. But him, he moves like a man ecstatic, a man born to do this very thing. He doesn't hesitate, not even when Bane regrows his eyeball. Yes, as we see Batman using his cape to slash and hack away at Bane, we see his eyeball regrowing in the socket. But it also seems like with every single panel, Bane is just getting bigger. I freaking told you, this issue is nuts. Anyway, Alfred's dialogue continues. The kid revels in it, the bringing forth of blood from those who deserve it, the blood of people who never see their own in the open air, people so powerful they've almost forgotten what courses through their own veins, until Batman shows them in red spraying arcs. And this is alongside an image of Batman running up Bane's back, slashing open his flesh with 2 batarangs before attempting to leap back to the arena floor. However, Bane gets a hold of his cape, and as Alfred screams, "Kid, no!" Bane slams Batman to the ground, but not just once. He starts to flail him back and forth, slamming him to the ground repeatedly, just like the Hulk did to Loki in the first Avengers film. You know what I'm talking about. And as Bane is flinging Batman around, he's telling him, "You know, we're not that different, you and me. The truth is, I look at you and I see myself, young, stupid. But playtime is over." He then hovers over Batman and says, "Use it. It's your only move." But Batman proves he's got more tricks up his sleeve, and he responds, "Not quite," as we see Harley Quinn scream, "Release the green machine." At which point members of the Red Hood gang open a trap door in the ground and release Killer Croc onto Bane. He comes flying out of the ground and just immediately goes after Bane like it's the freaking Coliseum. Croc then wraps himself around Bane and starts to tear at him and rip chunks of his flesh off, while Batman then unleashes the axe from his chest and starts to chop away at Bane's legs. However, Alfred continues to tell us Bane infuses more venom. I can hear the sickening squelch of muscle fibers multiplying, thickening. He grows bigger, impossibly big. The wounds close. Even as we continue to see Batman slice huge gashes into Bane's flesh. Batman then says, "What, no fancy quote?" At which point Bane picks him up off the ground and chucks him into the stands while saying, "Toward gnats and fleas we should show no pity." We then flash back to the fight between Waylon and Bibbo with commentary saying, "Champ comes roaring back. This could be trouble for Jones." As we move into the latter half, who expected this to be a classic? Followed by a view of Falcone cheering as Bruce and Selina then turn and start to walk out. And they're leaving because they know that Waylon has no intentions of throwing this fight. And considering the promises they made to Falcone, they need to make themselves ghosts before that goes down. Anyway, Harley then gets to Batman, who is collapsed into the upper deck of the stadium, and she tells him, "So this is probably when someone gives you a big inspirational speech, but I'm just gonna tell you to get the freak up. Cool?" To which Batman replies, "Cool." Harley then says, "Now get back in there and save that alligator." Alfred then radios into Batman and tells him, "Kid, he just keeps infusing more venom. I don't know what his max level is." At which point Bane grabs Killer Croc by his jaws and starts to rip him apart, as Alfred finishes saying, "I don't know that he has one anymore." Batman then jumps from the upper deck to save his friend while asking Alfred, "What's your point, Pennyworth?" To which Alfred responds, "My point is, I don't think you can get him to reach some max level at all. If you use the venom now, maybe you can at least get out of..." But Batman cuts him off saying, "No, we stick to the plan." And as we see Batman just straight up free diving into Bane like some sort of Viking jumping off a mountain into the ice, we see Harley looking on and asking her man, "Tell me we're still live." And the Red Hood member replies, "Oh, we're live, boss." We are then taken back to the fight between Waylon and Bibbo, where we see that Bruce has not left the arena, but instead made his way down to the arena floor. Fight commentary then says halfway into the 7th and Jones is barely hanging on, followed by Bruce shoving a security guard out of the way and bull rushing the ring. And this is intercut with more symbolic imagery as we see Bruce come flying in to attack Bane, who's trying to hurt Waylon in real time. At which point it immediately cuts back to the fight where Bibbo has Waylon in a headlock and Bruce approaches him in the ring saying, "Wait, I'm here." Guys, I've said it before as we've been covering this absolute Batman run, but Scott Snyder is just writing at such a high level right now. And I just want to take a second and appreciate the Michelin level cookery that is going on over at DC, especially with these absolute titles. Anyway, on the next page, we see Batman make contact with Bane's back with his axe, splitting it wide open and seemingly paralyzing Bane to the ground. This frees Killer Croc and he just collapses as Bruce tells him, "It's all right, Way. Go and thank you. I got this." Bruce then climbs onto Bane while saying, "I severed your spine at the thoracic, which means you can't use your legs anymore, but that's okay. You still have your arms." Followed by Batman hacking into his spine yet again with his axe to paralyze his arms. He then tells him, "Oh man, now you can't use your arms either. But hey, you can still bite me. And no, we're not that different. We both lost fathers. The difference is I didn't break my father's back. or his heart. But this triggers some kind of next level for Bane as we see the Venom release system seem to explode, transforming Bane yet again. We then also see that Dr. Arkham has been monitoring everything that's going on with Bane, and she tells him, Bane, it's incredible, your system, it's surpassing any limit we thought possible. But as we cut back to Bane and see that he has grown into something monstrous, I mean, dude's as big as a house, he tells Batman, you think you can win? Followed by crashing down a massive blow onto Batman. He then continues to say that you're better than me? You're nothing, as he punches Bruce through the ground. The fight commentary also says this could be it for Jones. Bibbo has a deathlock on that rear naked choke, as we then get an ultra wide shot from high above the arena showing just how big Bane has become, and he's screaming nothing. The now massive and completely deformed Bane approaches Batman saying, me, I've given everything, all so my people and home could be safe, because this is war. It's all war, but I'm done. It's your turn now. And as he slams another brutal blow onto Batman, he screams, your turn, meaning he wants Bruce to use the Venom. He's trying to provoke him to use it so that he will transform into Bane, effectively relieving him of his duty so he can go home to his family and rest. Dr. Arkham then says, I can't believe what I'm seeing. Bane, your cells, they've moved beyond self-repairing and become almost embryonic, undifferentiated. If 27 is anything like you, you're a miracle. Bane then comes in and brings his massive fist down on Batman in another insane blow. As a flashback to Wayland with fight commentary says, Jones searching for some last reserve of strength, but Batman finally seems to have realized that this was the trap all along. This was his trial by fire. This was the test. Could he make it through this without taking the bait, giving into the rage, and using the Venom? But even as Alfred chimes in saying, do it, kid, use the Venom. It's your only chance of making it out of there alive. Followed by Bane, who now seems to be morphing into something else entirely, tells him, go on, use it. However, a completely battered, absolute Batman just looks at him and says, all right, you win. You want me to use the Venom? He then grits his teeth and says, I'll use it. Catwoman, take the shot. We then see Catwoman standing on the top of the arena saying, I got you, as she fires down onto Bane from above. We then get a flashback where we see that Wayland has turned the tides and flipped Bibbo Babowski onto his head, using the champ's own weight against him. It then cuts back for us to see that those rounds that Catwoman fired at Bane went into his spine, specifically the Venom release system. As the fight commentator says, do you believe in miracles? Bane then grasps at his back saying, wait, stop. And in true absolute Batman fashion, he just responds by saying, no, and finishing Bane off by throwing his axe into his chest, at which point we see Bane explode. And I mean literally explode. So I guess they found Bane's upper limits, but Alfred goes on to say, I can't help but laugh then. Laugh like I haven't in years, because this kid, bloody hell. But how? So it turns out Bruce ended up doing the right thing and putting himself on the line for Wayland all those years ago, which inspired Wayland to come back and actually win the fight nobody thought he could win. Then years later, it was his turn to pull out a miracle in the fight of his life, also inspired by his friends. And on the next page, we are taken to 2 days ago where we actually see how this all came together. We see Bruce lying on a table as Eddie works on his spine saying, so how much of this stuff am I taking out of you again? To which Bruce responds, all of it, Eddie, every drop. I'll beat him my way. As we see Selina watching the whole thing. We then also see her injecting Venom into those tranquilizer darts she fired into Bane at the end, while telling Bruce, whatever happens, I'm proud of you, Wayne. We then see a flashback of Bruce storming into the octagon as Wayland stands over Bibbo Babowski victorious. This is followed by several more panels intercut between the past and the present, with Batman emerging from the goo that was once Bane, followed by a panel of Bruce lifting Wayland in the air after his victory, as Wayland said, did that really just happen? To which Bruce replies, I freaking hope so, because I just bet it all on you, brother. Wayland thinks he's kidding, but Bruce says, I'm serious, even Falcone's portion. At which point we see Falcone screaming, I want Wayne dead, you hear me? Then with Batman standing in front of what's left of Bane, we get back to the narration from Alfred as he says, now in hindsight, I understand how he won. Batman, I see it. The thing Bane didn't, the thing all kings and generals and masters of war always fail fail to take into account. That for some soldiers, winning isn't the point, because theirs is a fight that's bigger than any war. It's old as time and immediate as a baby's scream, and there's no end to it, ever. Not really. It's about doing what's right. No more, no less. So for someone like Batman, he's not fighting to win. He's fighting to fight. The fight is the point. For home, for the people he loves. Alongside a couple of panels showing Harvey and Ozzy cheering Bruce on as they recover, Alfred concludes by saying, "And I'm grateful to Batman for the reminder." However, we know that Absolute Batman does not end here. This is actually just the beginning of Bruce's fight. Because while he may have beaten Bane, the Joker is up next. And if you've seen any of the teaser images of Joker, and if this story is any indicator, the next story arc against the Joker is going to be out of control. Anyway, to set things up for Absolute Batman 15 and the emergence of the Joker, we see Selina on a plane, and it's revealed that she is escaping with a vial of venom. Then on the final page, we are taken back to Arkham, where we see Dr. Arkham talking to someone in a liquid chamber of some sort. And remember how during the fight when she said that Bane's cells were becoming almost embryonic? Well, it's revealed that they are regrowing Bane inside this chamber. As we see, he's only a set of eyes, a brain, and a part of a spinal cord. Dr. Arkham then says to him, "I must say, Bane, you're looking wonderful today. Your cells, they're just such a marvel. But I'm here because someone else wants to talk to you." She then turns her laptop toward Bane, and we see that it's the Joker. And he tells Bane, "I just wanted to put your mind at ease. This whole incident, I see it as a minor setback. Now look, I know you were hoping to retire, cede the role, but my sincere belief is that wouldn't make you happy. Not really. Lying around in Santa Prisca with the family? Come on. You love it too much, this war. So as your friend, I'd like to help." At which point we are shown the island of Santa Prisca alongside Joker continuing to say, "What was the name of your father's rebel group again? Cielos Libres? What a beautiful name. Free skies." See, that's how I want you to feel from now on, so you can focus on what you really love. Unburdened, liberated, free. As we see a bomber flying over the island and dropping a massive payload with Bane's wife and son looking on, with the final panel showing Bane being forced to watch the destruction of his family and his island. And with that, Absolute Batman and the Abomination arc comes to an end. The build-up throughout this Bane-centered story was so freaking good, and the payoff did not disappoint. However, Batman's trouble has only just begun, because the puppeteer controlling Bane has yet to reveal himself to Bruce. So let's jump back to Eris for issue 15 and the origin of Absolute Joker.
Alright, so Absolute Batman issue 15 opens up with Pennyworth telling Bruce, "It's time, kid. I've put it off as long as I could, but I need to tell you about him." To which Bruce replies, "I'm ready. So who is he?" Followed by images of the Joker landing a private plane on some remote island with a bunch of weapons and survival gear. Pennyworth then begins to tell Bruce, "That's the funny thing, Bruce. I've been chasing this man for 3 years and I'm still not certain what's real and what's fabrication. Some things add up and some things make no bloody sense at all." Bruce asks, "Like what?" Pennyworth tells him, well, like his islands. He owns hundreds of these tiny islands all over the world, from the Arctic Ocean to the Tasmanian Sea. Uninhabited, impossible to develop, wild, useless places. But he spends billions on them, travels to one or another a few times a year, alone. Bruce asks why. Pennyworth says, "That's my point. No one knows. Satellites show nothing on them. The theory is he likes to hunt, but he's a mystery, Bruce. The man in white who doesn't laugh," and on and on. Bruce says, "Then forget what's true, Pennyworth. Tell me what you believe." And as we turn the page, we get a 2-page spread of newspaper clippings, reports, and photos that Pennyworth has put together over the years, as we see this story is called The Joker. After this, Pennyworth starts telling Bruce the origin of the Joker, saying it starts here, with one of the first ever films recorded. Maybe the actual first, 1888. Bruce asks, "And who am I looking at?" Pennyworth tells him his great-grandfather. Bruce asks, "In the top hat?" Pennyworth tells him no. "In the makeup, the boy, the clown, Joseph Grimm I, Jack," as we see a little boy in terrifying clown makeup, which kind of looks like a mix between Pennywise and the Crow, who's juggling skulls. I repeat, juggling skulls. No one found this alarming. I get it was the 1800s, but come on, man. It's a boy in terrifying clown makeup
juggling skulls.
Pennyworth then says the story is he grew up an orphan on the streets of Gotham, made his living as a street performer. They say he was good too, best around, said you could hear the laughter from blocks and blocks, though he himself never so much as chuckled. His reputation grew. He brought his clown act to vaudeville, took the money from that and invested in his own theater. Just kidding. Bruce says JK. And I gotta say, great name for a man who becomes the Joker. And also look, they gave him subtle red eyes and green hair even back then in this flashback that Pennyworth is giving. Love the attention to detail. Anyway, Pennyworth says from here he invested in silent pictures, funded some big ones. Competition was fierce, but Jack always prevailed by, according to those around him, making people laugh loudest. Pennyworth then goes on to say, by 40 he made a fortune and became a member of Gotham's finest men's club, the Five Gates Club, the Slaughter Select, and so on. It is said that he, Andrew Mellon, John Rockefeller, and old Andrew Carnegie had their own Thursday salon, devoted to funding the health and progress of the Republic. Still, he was never one for the spotlight himself. There are almost no photos of him, no interviews, barely any records at all in fact. He exists mostly in the shows he produced. And the charity, Jack was a major philanthropist. That much is documented, though you won't see his name on anything. A wing of Gotham Med, the Gotham Met, Gotham University, he was especially devoted to children's causes, which made sense given his own rough childhood. Live like a clown, leave the world with more laughter than you entered. That was his reported motto. Jack died in 1938 according to the records and is buried in a family crypt here in the city. The whole live like a clown, leave the world with more laughter than you entered is actually terrifying because you know there is no real good intention behind that. Anyway, Pennyworth goes on to say Jack's legacy lived on in his son Jackie Jr., who had taken over the family business in the 1920s and expanded it. Like his father, Jack Grimm II invested in entertainment that would bring laughter to the world, eventually becoming one of the early financiers of television. He created a bunch of subsidiaries of JK, all named after famous clowns and gestures: Fox, Perot, Hop Frog, and so on. And like his father, he stayed committed to philanthropic pursuits, especially those for children. He opened homes for orphans across the country. By the 1960s, Junior's son, Jack Grimm III, was the central figure of JK, starting one of the first cable network companies devoted primarily to comedies and children's shows. Jack III was a major funder of public broadcasting. Jack Grimm IV was born sometime in the late 70s and took the company into gaming systems. He also expanded JK's philanthropy to global causes. Which finally brings us to our Jack Grimm V. Now, before I continue, I haven't mentioned it yet, but how brilliant is it that the absolute Joker's real last name is Grimm? It just makes all the sense in the world, and I love these little touches from Snyder. So good. All right, jumping back to the story, on the next page, Pennyworth continues to tell Bruce that Jack Grimm V is young, smart, and by far the most successful yet. He was one of the first investors in online gaming platforms, the hardware and software, and a primary backer of graphics processing units, the chips the entire bloody world runs on. And as he approaches trillionaire status, Jack V has vastly widened JK's charitable initiatives, international literacy programs, peace organizations, medicine, and aid drops. To those who know him, lauded and loved. Bruce then asks, so where is it? Pennyworth says, so where is what? Bruce tells him, where is the smoking gun, Pennyworth? What's so scary about this guy? He replies, on paper, nothing is so scary about him. Just the opposite. He's a fifth chapter in a story about a family that has made its fortune by embracing the very first love, the clown, helping Americans and people around the world smile, laugh. Sure, he's an eccentric, Jack is, likes to hunt big game alone on remote islands. But all billionaires are eccentric, right? As we see Jack hunting a panther with knives on some island, able to put it in a chokehold and kill it. Pennyworth says he's a classic American success story. Bruce then tells Pennyworth, I didn't ask you for the story, Pennyworth. I asked you what you believe. Pennyworth tells him, okay, kid, but for that, we need to go back to the start, to that boy in the alley. Back to the clown. And as you can see on this page, things are getting a whole lot scarier, and Pennyworth tells Bruce, see, young Jack Grimm often performed outside a dentist office. In the 1880s, they only just introduced nitrous oxide to dentistry, and Jack would sneak in, leak the gas into the alley, make them laugh, sure, but also make them suggestible, as nitrous does, so they'd give him all their money. The act was a trick, a sleight of hand, as we see this kid continuing to juggle what we could only assume are human skulls, maybe monkey skulls. I don't know. Anyway, Pennyworth goes on to say, this sleight of hand was no different from when Jack Sr. funded his own rivals in vaudeville and in film, playing one side against the other. And that's what my research has found out about the Grimm family. They've always played both sides. For a century and a half, these men have invested in one endeavor and its counter. It extends beyond entertainment to all aspects of life. They even funded our war effort and theirs, as we learned that the Joker funded the damn Nazis in the absolute universe. This doesn't get any more evil, friends. Anyway, as we continue, Pennyworth says, through subsidiaries, all their clown-named companies, the Grimms funded right-leaning news networks and left-leaning ones. They fund aid and the warlords who steal it, peace and war, the crimes and the prison, Arc M. They might be the most powerful crime family in history, playing everyone against each other, profiting off the chaos they sow, loyal to no country, no principle, nothing but power. Yeah, this is crazy. It is such a genius move to have this version of the Joker be so corrupted and evil that he sides with everyone to simultaneously manipulate everyone because he doesn't care about any cause but his own. At this point, Bruce asks, but why? How much is enough? Pennyworth tells him, I have always come back to that motto. Live like a clown. A clown plays the fool while making a fool of everyone else. He's a mastermind. The schemer. All the gold in the world isn't enough. Nothing is enough. I love that line so much. A clown plays the fool while making a fool of everyone else. Just so great and says so much with saying so little. We then get a scene of the Joker in present day on one of his remote islands as he has stumbled upon a makeshift hut. He then says, hello, is anyone home? At which point we get more narration from Pennyworth that says, now you know, that's the report I sent to my superiors at MI6. And then on the next page, we see the Joker has found a man on this remote island, a man who looks like freaking Tom Hanks in Castaway, as he tells the Joker, hello, is someone, oh thank God, mister, I've been trapped on this island alone for nearly 30 years. I don't know how I got here. My name is, but as the Joker walks forward, the man recognizes him saying, you? But how? As we get a close-up of the Joker's face with an evil snarl telling the stranded man to run. The man starts running saying, no, it can't be you. Bruce then tells Pennyworth, I don't care what you reported, Pennyworth. What do you believe? Tell me. Pennyworth finally says, all right, Bruce, but it might sound a little crazy. We go back to that alley one more time, to the clown, as we see this evil Pennywise-looking clown kid with dead bodies behind him. Pennyworth then goes on to say, what I found when I dug deeper was that many of the people laughing in that film died soon after it was shot, twisted in pain, grinning, a kind of strychnine poisoning, one of the few toxins that could be absorbed through the skin, like maybe upon shaking the gloved hand of a small boy, as we get panels of the Joker in present day taking his shirt off, getting ready to chase the stranded man while saying, ready or not, here I come, while we also see his face start to transform. Pennyworth continues to tell Bruce, but lots of people who encountered the Grimms over the years came to mysterious bad ends, jumping off bridges, vanishing, business rivals, politicians, reporters. In the 90s, an associate of mine at the FBI, Harvey Harris, began an investigation, died in a boat accident. Bruce asks again, what are you saying, Pennyworth? He replies, I'm saying there's a darker project, Bruce. I have records of Grimm investments in some of the deadliest inventions of the last 100 years. From the bomb to bioweapons, viruses. There are records of them laughing, Bruce, the Grimm men, at the tests. Bruce asks yet again, what are you getting at? Say it, as we see the Joker use a crossbow to shoot the man he's chasing in the Achilles tendon, going right through his leg. Pennyworth then answers Bruce saying, what if those islands are where he puts them? His enemies. What if he just leaves them there for years until he feels like, God, I sound mad? Bruce says, keep going, what do you believe? As we see the Joker walk up to the now wounded castaway he's chasing with his face transforming more and more. Pennyworth continues to answer Bruce saying, I believe he uses the children, Bruce. At first he used the ones in the orphanages and now he's using something else. He's found some way, I don't know, using their cells, using the research done at the Arcs, some terrible elixir. Bruce says, go on, Pennyworth, who is he? Pennyworth says, the clown, Bruce. What is a clown? It's whole act is a cruel mockery of us, of humanity, as bumbling, stupid. The clown hates us. You find stories in myth, legends from ancient times to now. The jester who burns the kingdom in Baldi Savage. The one who convinces us to kill each other even as he himself preys on us. The clown is death. Also, if you remember in the epilogue of Absolute Batman issue 6, we saw the Absolute Joker with baby fetuses all around his body healing him, making him look more human, and we're getting more imagery of that here. But this time with explanation of what's going on with those babies wrapped and hooked up to his body with what looks like artificial umbilical cords. So apparently the reason why he's been donating to kids and orphanages all these years is because he's developed some sort of elixir from these children that gives them these insane powers, which is causing him to be able to mutate into this Joker monster demon thing. But wait, there's more. We currently see the Joker turning into this monstrosity, telling the castaway, "Coming for you," as the castaway says, "My God." But Bruce tells Pennyworth for like the 7th time, "Stop dancing around it. Say it, damn it. What do you believe?" As Pennyworth finally spits it out and we learn what the Joker really is. Not what he put in his report, what the truth is, or at least what he truly believes. Pennyworth then says, "I believe that there is no Grimm family, all right? I believe there is no Jack the First, the Second, the Third, the Fourth, the Fifth. There has ever only been one Jack Grimm. Maybe it's just his infernal science. Maybe it's some dark pact. I don't know. Maybe it's both. And I know how it sounds, kid, I know. But I look at him and he's something terrible, Bruce. A nightmare thing that stalks the earth. Not a man who never laughs at anything, but the beast that's always laughing at us. The one whose laughter we only hear when it's too late. So who is he? He's the Joker, as we see the Joker fully transform into this monster violator Demogorgon form. At which point he picks up the stranded man with one hand and eats him. Just throws him in his mouth, laughing as he does it. And let me just say, this Joker is terrifying. We all know it. We've been saying this since we got our first look at him. But this is just crazy. This is the most demonic, monstrous Joker we've ever seen. And Bruce, unless you finally decide to use that venom, I don't know how you're getting out of this. At this point, we're finally brought to Pennyworth and Bruce. We see Bruce suited up as Batman saying, "I've heard enough." Pennyworth says, "Bruce," but Bruce tells him, "No, I need to check on Wayland." Pennyworth says, "I understand. Be careful out there, kid." And as Batman goes to check on Wayland, Pennyworth's internal monologue says, "Nicely done, old fool. He didn't sign up for this. Sure, he wanted to fight, to punch back, to scream, but this, in just the last year, the world has cracked itself open and revealed its true face to him. All its monsters everywhere he looks. The other night I found him watching a story about a woman in Gateway City who claims to be magic, some kind of god warrior from hell," which is an absolute Wonder Woman reference because the next issue is going to be a crossover with Absolute Batman and Wonder Woman. Anyway, Pennyworth goes on to tell himself, to his credit, he just keeps on. He pushes forward. But did you really tell him about Grimm for his own sake? No, you told him because you couldn't live with it anymore. Because deep down, you're a coward. Just yesterday, a report put Grimm on one of his islands off the coast of Colombia, but you couldn't let it alone, even with Grimm 3,000 miles away from Gotham. As we see Batman swinging through the city via his grapple gun. However, the Joker isn't 3,000 miles away. The Joker is in Gotham at street level, watching Batman swing through the skyline. We then see the Joker say, "Well, hello there," followed by getting into his car, then heading back to his manor, where he's greeted by his butler, who looks like the main universe Alfred Pennyworth, who says to him, "Welcome back to the manor, Master Grimm. It's so nice to finally have you home. Are you hungry?" But the Joker looks at him and replies, "No. I ate." Yeah, he ate, and as we know, what he ate was a damn human being back on that island. He then goes over to a grandfather clock and sets the hands to 1046 or 1047, which opens up a secret door behind it, while he tells his butler, "I have plans to make though, so if you need me, I'll be in my cave." And as he descends into the stairs, the issue ends. That's right, not only is Absolute Joker a billionaire like main universe Bruce, but he also apparently has his own manor, butler, and a grandfather clock that opens a secret passage down to his own, I guess, Joker cave? My God, I need to know what his Joker cave looks like so bad. It's just a brilliant role swap, and there is definitely going to be some kind of significance to the specific time shown on the grandfather clock. In the main continuity, Bruce uses the same time that his parents were murdered to open the hidden door to his Batcave, and Snyder and Jock definitely made a point to show that, so I'm sure we'll learn at some point what that time means to Absolute Joker. Regardless, this was a freaking wild issue, and the Joker's origin is insane. I can confidently say this is one of the coolest origins we've gotten from any comic book character in a long time. There's so many layers to it, and while we got the meat of his origin, Snyder still left us with a ton of mystery, starting with what this dude actually is or has become. Is he a demon? Did he make a deal with Satan? Is he using dark magic? We don't exactly know. We just know that somehow he's using live babies or some sort of elixir to make him live all these years and become the monster that he is. And he has nothing but selfish, evil intentions. I'm sure more of this will be explained as he comes into confrontation with Absolute Batman, which I cannot wait for. The dialogue that's going to be exchanged, the fight scenes that will ensue. Dude, if we thought Absolute Bane versus Absolute Batman was crazy, just imagine what Absolute Batman versus Absolute Joker will be like. We're here for it.
But that is just the first piece of Absolute Joker's origin story, because the Absolute Batman Arkham one-shot added some critical pieces to the puzzle, and it does it in an unexpected and completely amazing way. It might be my favorite issue in the entire series so far. Let's just get into it so you can see why. Alright, so the issue opens up with a series of flashbacks starting in the late 1800s and the opening of Arkham Asylum. But we simultaneously get narration that reads, "These are the writings of Dr. Amadeus Arkham. They serve as a chronicle of this infamous place that bears my name, Arkham Asylum. Yet this book is also other things. It is my confession. It holds secrets I will take with me to my grave. It's also a warning about the terrible evil I have unleashed upon the world, and a plea that you, reader, stop it before it's too late." As we see an image of Dr. Arkham holding a book that he wrote titled, Who Was Jack the Ripper? So right off the bat, this issue introduces a deeply ominous tone, but it's just the beginning, my friends. Because on the next page, we jump to 1945, where we find Dr. Arkham standing in his office at Arkham Asylum. He's staring at pictures he has hanging on the walls of his office, which happen to be the same images we saw on the first page. Someone then knocks on his office door, and when he answers, it's a gentleman saying, "Good day, Dr. Arkham. I'm not too early, am I?" To which Arkham replies, "It's fine. The faster we complete this process, the better." The man smiles and says, "You're not reconsidering, are you?" But Dr. Arkham reassures him, saying, No, it's time. And I do believe the price reflects that, and how determined I am to get a deal done. Revealing that the elderly Dr. Arkham is looking to sell his asylum. And he tells the man who's looking at a painting, "If you'll just follow me, I'll take you for a tour of the grounds." But the man responds, "I couldn't help but notice this woman. If you don't mind me asking, who is she?" And Dr. Arkham tells him, "That would be my mother. In some ways, it can be said this place began with her." We then flash back to his childhood as Amadeus continues to explain, "My first memories are of my mother standing watch at our front window, awaiting his return. Lee had surrendered at Appomattox Courthouse, you see, and my father was long past due. The waiting had taken a toll on my mother. It had taken a toll on me. But this night would be different. This night, the dark silhouette of a Union soldier marched up our walk. It was him," my mother exclaimed. "After all this time, father was home. Or so we thought. We quickly realized the soldier at the door was not my father. The letter he handed my mother would explain everything," he said. And so it did. It came from the newly installed President Johnson, informing us that father had been killed at the Battle of Palmito Ranch. Ironically, a battle fought after Lee's surrender, meaning my father died in a pointless battle. It was all too much for my mother to take. The soldier, to his credit, tried to console her, but she had other ideas." We then see Amadeus' mother take the soldier's pistol from his holster and shoot him with it, followed by turning on her own children, as Dr. Arkham's narration continues to tell us, "As the soldier's blood started to pool at our doorstep, my mother looked over the faces of my siblings and proceeded to execute them one by one. But when she came to me, she paused and turned the gun on herself instead. Why she chose to spare me that day, I will never know. But the incident would shape my life. From when I first arrived at the Elliott Gotham City Orphanage as a scared little boy, to the day I emerged from its doors a confident young man with nothing more than the clothes on my back and a dream. A dream to help people like my mother. A dream to build a place where people such as her could get the care they needed, where the best science of the day would be applied to treat the mind's afflictions, so the tragedy that befell me could be prevented invented, a place I would call Arkham Asylum. With the money given to me by the Elliott Family Foundation, I would purchase the land where my dream would come to fruition. Cheap land with a past of its own, granted due to it being where the British kept colonial prisoners of war during the Revolution, where there was much abuse and loss of life, a place other Gothamites said was haunted from the start, soaked in blood and madness. Still, none of that mattered to me, not as long as some good could come out of it. We then see Dr. Arkham looking over his completed asylum and the early days of its work as he continues to say, "In the beginning, Arkham was everything I wanted it to be. A good facility with a full staff of like-minded individuals getting patients the help they so desperately needed. Even those patients who, with Gotham being Gotham, were a bit more in need, shall we say. My mother would be proud, I believed. That said, Arkham was not without its issues in those initial years. One issue in particular, a man so vile and heinous, I will not even utter his name. Let's call him Jack Doe for the purpose of this journal. By the time he was sent to us, Jack had murdered multiple people, men, women, children, and soon after his arrival, he killed 2 nurses and disemboweled another prisoner. He took glee in the killing. He was always laughing, a horrible grin on his face. He was the type of inmate that threatened the very existence of Arkham, and so he became the patient I was most determined to help." We then cut back to 1945 with Dr. Arkham and his potential buyer walking through the now mostly empty Arkham Asylum. The man then asks Amadeus, "So tell me, doctor, why has Arkham so clearly fallen on such hard times?" To which the doctor responds, "Fewer and fewer patients for one thing, fancier and more modern facilities sponsored by the Lazarus Corps in Metropolis and elsewhere for another. The truth is, this place would have had to close years ago, if not for the kindness of benefactors such as yourself." This surprises the man and he says, "Ha! It appears you've done your homework, doctor. I like my donations to be anonymous." Arkham replies, "Look, I'm not just going to hand this institution over to someone I know nothing about. So yes, I did my research and I appreciate your generosity. Mental health is important to you, clearly." The mystery man replies, "It is. I've seen up close the suffering caused by conditions of the mind, and I feel it's our duty to find cures so that younger generations never have to contend with them. Our children deserve a better future." He then asks, "Do you have children, doctor?" A shocked look comes over Arkham's face and he stumbles over his words as he says, "Children? No, I never had any children." However, the next page takes us back to Arkham Asylum in 1885, as we see a young boy covered in blood knocking at the asylum's door as we get excerpts from the doctor's journal that says, "It was raining the night he arrived, covered in blood. So much blood, even the rain couldn't wash it away. How did he get that way? Whose blood was it?" We then see nurses caring for the boy and Dr. Arkham himself tucking the boy into sleep. As the narration continues, the boy claimed he did not know, but it was clear he had suffered greatly in life. An orphan raised on the streets, he was near death when I found him. And being an orphan myself, I took pity on the lad. I took him in, and eventually, in time, I took him under my wing. And this is where things get absolutely insane, but again, I'm not gonna spoil it. We're just gonna keep going. Anyway, we then see Dr. Arkham walking through the corridors of Arkham Asylum with the young boy who is now assisting him. As the narration continues to tell us, he was bright and learned quickly. More than anything, the boy was fascinated by my work and would tour the halls of Arkham with me. Perhaps it was growing among the suffering masses of Gotham, but his fascination soon became a passion. He believed in the good of this place and in me, and I dare say, with no heir of my own, I came to think of him as my own son, someone who would carry on my name and my work. Tomorrow is a new page, father, the boy would say, no matter how bad things seemed at the asylum, a private phrase to buoy my spirits. He was ever the optimist, even when he met Jack Doe. Jack was being punished for brutalizing yet another nurse. He taunted the boy, tried to get under his skin, ever a cruel joker, but still, the boy remained undeterred. Were the likes of Jack beyond our help? I confess, I started to wonder. And one of the most interesting things that Scott Snyder has done here with this Jack Doe is he's given him the characteristics of the normal Joker we're used to from the main DC continuity. Because the absolute Joker in this universe, as we've come to know throughout this title, especially in Absolute Batman 15, is the exact opposite of the Joker in terms of characteristics that we're used to. He's very stoic, he does not smile, and he does not laugh. But this Jack Doe, on the other hand, as explained by Dr. Arkham, is always smiling and laughs while he commits horrendous crimes. And once you find out the true reason for all of this, you are definitely going to want to have a physical copy of this issue in your collection. Come to think of it, you might want to pick up two. All right, so jumping back to the issue, we return to the conversation between Dr. Arkham and his mystery buyer. And as we turn the page, the doctor is explaining why Jack Doe made him question whether or not patients like him could be helped. He tells us that just a couple of days after introducing
introducing Jack to the boy, he escaped from his cell and took the boy hostage, putting a knife to his throat. Dr. Arkham's narration says, "I did everything I could to talk Jack down. Thankfully, while Jack was cunning, he wasn't stupid. He knew killing the boy would result in instant death. I was just happy to get the boy back. Even as I hugged him, I knew the light in him had only been strengthened." We then go back to Arkham in 1945, where we see an orderly wheeling a patient down the hall. And the buyer asks, "You still do get patients, I see?" To which the doctor responds, "Few and far between, and with a small staff to help me at this point. But yes, we do." But the conversation takes a sudden turn as the man tells Amadeus, "I must give you credit, Dr. Arkham. Through all the ups and downs of this place, you've still managed to keep things afloat, even after the most infamous incident of all." The doctor looks down and replies, "I'm sorry, I don't know what you're referring to." But the man's demeanor takes a far more serious tone as he replies to Arkham saying, "Of course you do, doctor. As you have done your homework on me, so too have I done mine on you and this facility. So please, doctor, let's not continue to insult my intelligence and discuss the true reason this institution's reputation has suffered for decades. Tell me about the breakout." At this point, Dr. Arkham fesses up and we are taken back to 1886. As the doctor tells the man, "It was all due to a careless orderly. I had warned the fool time and time again, whatever you do not get close to the inmates. His keys were taken, his throat slashed from ear to ear with a sharpened toothbrush, and he was but the first." He, referring to Jack Doe, released a number of his fellow inmates and they made their way down to the furnace room, deciding against confronting the armed guards at the front doors. Whatever the case, they quietly worked through the night, dug out a tunnel from behind the furnace, and just like that, they were gone. As we see a number of the craziest Arkham Asylum inmates making a mad dash into the woods. Dr. Arkham goes on to say, "Waking the next day to this nightmare, I knew Jack had done it. I could almost hear him laughing, that man who loved nothing more than to torch the world. It was a revelation that made my heart stop because I knew Jack." We then see Dr. Arkham running towards a room with bloodied footprints approaching the door. As he continues, "I knew who he would target before making his escape." He then finds an empty bed and the teddy bear he had given to the young boy covered in blood, and he says, "My son was lost to me forever. Tomorrow is a new page." That phrase of his came back to me over and over. But his story was over. We then return to 1945 as Dr. Arkham leads the man into another room while saying, "I never forgave myself for the breakout and for what happened as a result. To cope, I converted an old storeroom and created this, a record of my own shame." The man then looks around the room with countless newspaper clippings that have been pinned to the walls, reporting on probably hundreds of people who had been murdered due to the escape of Arkham Asylum. Amadeus then goes on to say, "The breakout was hidden from the papers to prevent panic. Sick people under Jack's tutelage twisted toward crime. There were robberies, murders. Eventually, all were brought back to this place. All except him, the man I refer to as Jack Doe. The man I have come to believe would become the world's most notorious serial killer, Jack the Ripper. A man that might be more than human, but evil itself. A smiling demon, a hellish jokester." Now, two things are happening here simultaneously. First, it's insane that he is referring to this guy as Jack the Ripper. But also, there is a continuous tease that this guy is somehow potentially the Joker himself. And you could make the connection. However, on the next panel, as Amadeus is continuing to make the connection between Jack the Ripper and Jack Doe, saying that the timeline fits, the man interrupts him saying, "Yes, doctor, I'm well aware of your works on the subject. Speaking of which, the furnace room. I'd like to see it." They then enter the furnace room and Dr. Arkham tells him, "Nearly 60 years ago now, and I haven't been down here since. If I'm being honest about it, I just couldn't face it." The man then looks at the brick wall between the two furnaces and says, "This wall where it's rebricked, this is where they escaped from, correct?" Dr. Arkham confirms, but the man then turns to another wall and says, "Then why is this wall rebricked as well?" But again, Dr. Arkham has already said he hasn't been down there in 60 years, and he tells the man, "Having not been down here in ages, as I've said, it's not something I would have noticed before." The man then smirks and says, "Ever wonder what else you never noticed, doctor?" As narration from Dr. Arkham's journal tells us, he leaned in and whispered something to me then, something that stopped me cold. But before I could respond, we then see the man walking up the stairs and leaving Dr. Arkham in the furnace room while telling him, "You don't have to see me out, doctor. I love the place." And if you're like me, you now see exactly where this is going and you're starting to connect all the dots about everything we have learned about Jack Grimm, aka aka Absolute Joker, throughout this entire title, especially Absolute Batman 15. And I'm going to connect those dots as we get towards the end. But on the next page, we see Dr. Arkham lying in bed saying, "That night I could not sleep. I must have heard him wrong, my buyer, but part of me knew I had not." While we simultaneously see Dr. Arkham going down into the furnace room with a crowbar and the child's bear in his pocket. Dr. Arkham's narration then tells us, "And so I woke and wrote these words, this desperate cry to anyone who might hear it. I shall put this journal in the post as soon as I'm done. But before I do, I will go down into the dark one more time. To prove what I already know, I shall remove the bricks and find what I know to be there." He then approaches the re-bricked wall that he had not noticed before, the one that the buyer pointed out, and he begins to take it apart with the crowbar. And as he breaks it open, he looks inside and collapses in shock because he has now discovered the truth. We then see the doctor pulling the teddy bear that he had once given to the young boy out of his robe pocket and approaching the furnace as he says the horrible truth. That truth might be my legacy, but this place will not be. As he sticks the back end of the bear into the furnace, pulls it out like a torch, and lights the entire place on fire from the furnace room. We then see the remaining inmates and the staff burning alive as Arkham Asylum burns to the ground. But we then go outside where we find the buyer standing in the field with Arkham burning in the background, and he is holding Dr. Arkham's journal and reading it while it says, "And so I send this journal to you, Captain Flass of the Gotham City Police Department. I only pray it reaches you in time to stop him. The man who laughs from the dark." We then see the man smile as he turns to watch Arkham burn, but we are then taken to Arkham now in the present and the office of Jack Grimm. And we see a painting hanging on the wall of his office of the old Arkham in flames, and he's got several files and Dr. Arkham's journal on his desk as we get the last words from that journal that says, "Not Jack Doe, but him, the boy, the one I once called my son." He then goes on to confirm everything we've now pieced together by saying, "See, it was Jack Doe's body I found behind that wall, not the boy's, because it was the boy all along. The voice in Jack Doe's ear, the hand at his cell lock, the knife at his throat. For that's what the man, my buyer, whispered to me. That phrase only we two knew, the same one on the note left by Jack's body." As we see the deteriorated body of Jack Doe with a sharpened toothbrush in his neck and a note pinned to his chest that says, "Tomorrow's a new page." Arkham's journal then concludes by saying, "The boy did it all just to make a fool of me, my hopes, my beliefs. He's the monster, the one laughing in the dark, always laughing. And now he has come back to buy this place. I could see it in his eyes, the terror he will make. Instead of a place to heal the sick, a place to make monsters. You must stop him." The man called Jack Grimm. Otherwise, God have mercy on us all. Signed, Amadeus Arkham. So basically this issue, instead of just giving us the origin of the Absolute Universe's version of Arkham Asylum, which it does, it also gives us an extension of the origin of Absolute Joker. Because remember, in Absolute Batman issue 15, where Alfred gives us the first piece of Absolute Joker's origin, he explains that the first time that Jack Grimm pops up in history that he could find was in 1888. But the young boy appeared on the steps of Arkham Asylum covered in blood in 1885, and then caused the massacre and the escape from Arkham Asylum in 1886. So according to what Alfred told Bruce, it was just 2 years after the fall of Arkham that Jack Grimm appeared as a young orphan street performer in Gotham. That's right, the creepy kid in clown makeup, that's him. And it's that same Jack Grimm, along with his son, grandson, great-grandson, and so on, who would amass a ton of wealth and power over time through his entertainment empire and other business ventures. But the revelations in this Arkham issue seem to confirm Alfred's suspicion, which he reluctantly revealed to Bruce at the end of Absolute Batman 15. Basically, after laying out everything he knows about Jack Grimm's history to Bruce, and Bruce nagging him to tell him what he really thinks about Jack Grimm, what he believes, Alfred finally breaks down and says, "I believe that there is no Grimm family, all right? I believe there is no Jack the 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th. There's only ever been one Jack Grimm. Maybe it's just his infernal science, maybe it's some dark pact, I don't know. Maybe it's both. But I look at him and he's something terrible, Bruce. A nightmare thing that stalks the earth. Not a man who never laughs at anything, but a beast that's always laughing at us. And that sentiment from Alfred directly coincides with what Dr. Arkham wrote in his journal about the young boy who had committed these atrocities at Arkham. Specifically where he says, the boy did it all just to make a fool of me, my hopes, my beliefs. He's the monster, the one laughing in the dark, always laughing. So again, this issue is an extension or a missing piece to the origin of Absolute Joker, a piece Alfred did not have. And with this confirmation that there has only ever been one Jack Grimm, it does seem to suggest that there is something non-human about him. Is it just a manipulation of genetics, something tied to Darkseid, or something supernatural? We are going to find out at some point for sure. So that by itself is just an incredible addition to this mythology, and once again, just unbelievable writing by Scott Snyder. But here's the thing, that's not where the issue ends. As we see Jack Grimm leave his office, someone says to him, "What am I supposed to be looking at, sir?" And on the next page, we see that they are watching Absolute Batman destroy some armed criminals on a series of monitors. And Jack tells this person off screen, "You're watching our target." They call him the Batman. He's a former patient here, believe it or not, one who escaped, or so he thinks. The person he's talking to then says, "Are we playing with our food here? What's next?" To which Jack responds, "I have my plans." But this mystery person tells him, "If I'm being honest, sir, I've seen enough. Enough to see he's no real threat. I can handle him, easy." But just as Jack is telling this person, "I know you can," he switches the view on the monitors to the containment cells for Kirk Langstrom and Pamela Isley. Absolute Joker then tells this person, "But there are other friends I'd like to introduce him to in the meantime," as we see a stack of files for Kurt Langstrom Man-Bat, Pamela Isley Poison Ivy, Hugo Strange, Jonathan Crane Scarecrow, Basil Karlo Clayface, and Jervis Tetch Mad Hatter. Now we know that Absolute Poison Ivy is set to play a prominent role in Absolute Batman issue 17. And while this is the first reference for several of those villains in the Absolute universe, that is not the case for Absolute Poison Ivy or Absolute Man-Bat, because we actually got our first look at both the Isley experiment and the Langstrom experiment back in issue 10 as Bruce was trying to break out of Arkham. And as you can see, just like every other villain that's appeared so far, they are horrifying. Anyway, jumping back to the issue, Jack then says, "So with that in mind," followed by clicking a button releasing every one of those villains in the files from their containment cells. This mystery person then says to Jack, "None of this was necessary." But Grimm just replies, "Don't worry, you'll get your chance soon enough. Everything in due time." As we turn to the final page, as we see that the person he's been talking to is Absolute Deathstroke, who was first referenced in Absolute Batman issue 11 as Alfred was giving Bruce Bane's backstory. And in that issue, we learn that Deathstroke is one of Arkham's warriors created in the image of Bane alongside KG Beast and others. In fact, Deathstroke is the only one that Alfred mentions he knows too well. We're not sure yet what that means, but I'm willing to bet that we're about to find out. But that, my friends, wraps up this issue, which turned out to be so much more than we originally thought. And that's been the running theme with this title. Every time you think it can't get better, Scott Snyder just takes it up a notch. I mean, with this standard length Arkham issue, he not only gave us the origin of Absolute Arkham Asylum, but he also gives us this shocking addition to the origin of Absolute Joker, introduces us to Absolute Deathstroke paying off what he set up in issue 11, and reveals the entire next batch of Absolute villains that Batman is going to be facing as this next stage of his war against Joker unfolds. Altogether, this issue left me convinced that we have nothing but good things to look forward to from the Absolute universe in the coming year. But as always, we want to know what you guys think, so drop your thoughts on the entire Abomination arc and the origin of Joker in the comments below. Other than that, we will see you next time when we talk about all things comics.